lot going on around here.
All right, don't worry about it. Just stand there. Don't worry about it. I say, you gonna be there? What do you want? Just trying to make sure that just trying to make sure that No. I was watching like our set up here. Yeah, typically it's like a lot of people like in there and stuff. And he said Are you speaking?
Certainly very happy to see each of you out this evening. We are here this evening for serious business. We are here in a general sense because first and foremost we are American citizens. And we are determined to acquire our citizenship to the fullness of its meaning. We're here also because of our love for democracy, because of our deep-seated belief that democracy transformed from thin paper to thick action is the greatest form of government on earth. But we are here in a specific sense because of the bus situation in Montgomery. We are here because we are determined to get the situation corrected. This situation is not at all new. The problem has existed over endless years. For many years now, Negroes in Montgomery and so many other areas have been inflicted with the paralysis of crippling fear on buses in our community. So many occasions, Negroes have been intimidated and humiliated and oppressed because of the sheer fact that they were Negroes. I don't have time this evening to go into the history of these numerous cases. Many of them now are lost in the thick fog of oblivion. But at least one stands before us now with glaring dimensions. Just the other day, just last Thursday to be exact, one of the finest citizens in Montgomery, not one of the finest Negro citizens, but one of the finest citizens in Montgomery, was taken from a bus and carried to jail and arrested because she refused to get up to give her seat to a white person. Now the press would have us believe that she refused to leave a reserved section for Negroes. But I want you to know this evening that there is no reserved section. The law has never been clarified at that point. Now I think I speak with legal authority. Not that I have any legal authority, but I think I speak with legal authority behind me. That the law, the ordinance, the city ordinance has never been totally clarified. Mrs. Rosa Parks is a fine person. And since it had to happen, I'm happy that it happened to a person like Mrs. Parks. And nobody can doubt the boundless outreach of her integrity. Nobody can doubt the height of her character. Nobody can doubt the depth of her Christian commitment and devotion to the teachings of Jesus. And I'm happy since it had to happen. It happened to a person that nobody can call a disturbing factor in the community. Mrs. Parks is a fine Christian person, unassuming, and yet there is integrity and character there. And just because she refused to get up, she was arrested. You know, my friends, there comes a time when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression. Piercing chill of an alpine November. We are here this evening because we're tired now. That we are Christian people. We believe in the Christian religion. We believe in the teachings of Jesus. The only weapon that we have in our hands this evening is the weapon of protest. Certainly, this is the glory is the glory of our democracy. If we were incorporated behind the iron curtains of a communistic nation, we couldn't do this. If we were dropped in the dungeon of a totalitarian regime, we couldn't do this. But the great glory of American democracy is the right to protest our rights. My friends, don't let anybody make us feel that we ought to be compared in our actions with the Ku Klux Klan or with the White Citizens Council. There will be no crosses burned at any bus stops in Montgomery. There will be no white persons pulled out of their homes and taken out on some distant road and there will be nobody among us who will stand up and defy the Constitution of this nation. We only assemble here because of our desire to see right exist. My friends, I want it to be known that we are going to work with real and bold determination to gain justice and the justice in this city. And we are not wrong. We are not wrong in what we are doing. If we are wrong, the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong. If we are wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we are wrong, God Almighty is wrong. If we are wrong, Jesus of Nazareth was merely a utopian dream and never came down to earth. If we are wrong, justice is a lie. God has no meaning. And we are determined here in Montgomery to work and fight until justice runs down like water and
Please welcome Reverend Willie McClung, who has faithfully pastored Holt Street Memorial Baptist Church for nearly 25 years, serving this community with dedication and spirit.
Thank you so very much. Let me just say, on behalf of Mrs. Crenshaw and all of the workers that's put together this program, I want to take a moment and introduce you to the history of Holt Street Baptist Church. You have just heard the first national speech of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. From this pulpit, Dr. King introduced to the world the need for integration, especially in the city of Montgomery, Alabama, but also the world at large. This place became the birthplace of the modern civil rights movement in America on the night that Martin King made that speech from this pulpit. It became the epicenter of the Montgomery bus boycott. For from this house, the lunch began and walking started for 381 days. This church now stands on the same place foundation where it was started in 1909, but the first church was built in 1913 at this site at 903 South Holt Street. It has been here for 116 years. Of the 8 pastors before that included me, 8 pastors stayed here and worked their heart out, trying to be sure that the community of Montgomery that it lived in and existed in would flourish, do the work of Christ, and help its people. We had an awful time trying to survive from the days of 1955. Arthur Wilson, who was the pastor before me for 50 years, I came in after a short stay of a pastor named Perry, about 22 months, and I have been here now 33 years as the second longest pastor of Holt Street Baptist Church. We honor Pastor Wilson and his wife for all of the work that was done for this place in Montgomery. What was little known was that Pastor Wilson was not only an active pastor in the community of this church, he went on to become the president of the Alabama State Convention for Baptists that had a number of 900 churches in it. But I discovered in my discovery of history after coming to lead Holt Street that Wilson was also, at the time of the Bus Boycott, the vice president of the Alabama State Convention, which placed him on the board of the National Baptist Convention, USA Incorporated. He and his wife created most of the ministries of this church. And of course, downstairs in the lower level, where you'll see a display of historical things in the school, this first daycare center was created downstairs in this building in 1941 by the Wilsons. It became the place that housed the children of the mothers and fathers who had to go to work walking for 381 days to make this thing work that King had led. Let me share with you also from that speech that you just heard from Dr. King. King had to make a meeting down the street, about a block from here, at Mount Zion AME Church. A rush meeting called to remember that the national press would be here that night, and they had not thought to make themselves into an organization, a community organization. And Ralph Abernathy suggested that the name of a movement would be the MIA, the Montgomery Improvement Association. Dr. King was elected at that church in a few minutes to become president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. And already here in this house was a crowd jam-packed from every corner of the building on these 2 floors that you have seen. If some of you haven't been downstairs, you must go to see where the school was located. But on the outside, there was another more than 5,000 people gathered that night to witness the meeting of the community that Joanne Robertson had called together by having her students at Alabama State take out messages and let's get the people together to have a meeting at Holt Street because Wilson had invited them here. And when they came, the picture on the front of the church, there at the front door, is the crowd of the people present that night on December the 5th, 1955, where you were seated. And yes, we have made a few minor changes. The pews went all the way to the wall. I shortened those so that you can get around to see the history of the church. But then chairs was down the aisle. I put some chairs out just in case you needed them today, because it was packed in this house that night. I have always pointed out to people coming to visit, the young lady over here on the wall with a finger up represents my heart. I don't know her name. I don't know where she came from and how long she was here. But what I do know is she represented the heart of the people that night when she walked to the door and said, "Give me a ride." And for 381 days, they did that. Yes, 3 of us, 3 pastors of the 8, became the builders of these houses. I.S. Fountain built the first one on this site. Arthur Wilson built the second one on this site. In 1953, the city of Montgomery condemned the church building and said it had to be torn down. They tore it down and built it back in 1953. Then by 1955, Rosa Parks go out and get herself arrested. And of course, they wanted to know where can we meet. And Wilson was there to say, meet at Holt Street, because it was the newest and largest church in the community, in the heart of this community at that time. And that's what launched Holt Street into the history that it has. And then in 1992, a guy named Willie McClung came here to pastor at their request. And because I was born and raised in Alabama, in Pickens County, I knew it all the way from the cotton field to where the movement started, and went on to become a member of the Bethel Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, with Fred Shuttlesworth as my pastor. He ordained me in ministry. And it was just my duty to come on back here to Holt Street, because I was one of the students at Miles College that had to lead the charge, riding buses, and doing all of the things that we had to do as a student body. And so we have lived here all of these years. And finally, in the end of that part of the ministry that I have served here, I asked this church, since we had already designed this house for a museum, I asked them when I came here, if you want to move, and they was talking about moving to a new site, let's make this a museum and I will help you do it. And because they agreed, we bought a building, bought land at 1870 South Court Street, built a new house for Christ, made it the worship center for time immemorial. We took the school over to the new building, and we took it all the way to an academy up to the 6th grade. We still have the daycare center. We have now come back to this house and spent the rest of the years that I have been away from Holt Street Memorial. And I promised this church that as long as I live, I'll spend the rest of my days representing Holt Street Baptist Church as its board chairman and historian here at 903 South Holt Street. My church agreed, and my own son became the pastor, the senior pastor. Where is he standing? David, where are you? There he is over there. I'm going to leave you with this. This church deserves support from the world. What happened here changed the world. And no matter who becomes president of the United States, Holt Street deserved to survive. And as I turn this over, I just want to say thank you for coming. We have, in the last 2 years since we've been accepted on the National Trail, finally. Should have been the first one. But we finally got there. And 14 states, plus Washington, D.C., make up that trail. When you talk about Selma to Montgomery and the Edmonds Pettus Bridge, it all started over here. When you talk about voting rights and all of the things that Johnson and them tried to do as president and didn't make it yet, it started here. Let us never forget a church that made the sacrifice, gave up everything they could give up. I forgot to tell you one thing. You see that expressway out there? The engineer in the state of Alabama was so angry with Wilson for letting them meet here that he wrapped the expressway around the neck of Holt Street. You can't come to Holt Street's front door without going a mile either way and coming back a mile on the expressway, and destroyed the community where it exists. But God keeps working with us. And what I was able to do when I came in, and I'm so delighted that we have a young mayor, Mayor Reed, who has worked with me in such a creative way that we asked them to clean up and let us fix up. And they started cleaning up around here. And then I asked the state of Alabama, would you please take those trees down so they can see it from the expressway? And they took all the trees down. And you can see it. So we have turned that curse of the engineer into a blessing, because we can see 14,000 vehicles going by this church every week. We just need a crowd. Y'all make that crowd for me. Thank you so much.
How I got over, how'd I make it over? You know my soul look back and wonder, how'd I make it over? Tell me how we got over. Had a mighty hard time coming on over. You know my soul look back and wonder, how'd I make it over? Soon as I can see Jesus, the man that died for me, the man that bled and suffered and hung on Calvary, I want to thank him for how he brought me. I want to thank God for how he taught me. Oh, thank my God how he kept me. I'm gonna thank him 'cause he never left me. I'm gonna thank God for old-time religion. I'm gonna thank God for giving me a vision. One day I'll join the heavenly choir. I'm gonna sing and never get tired. And then I'm gonna sing somewhere around God's altar. I'm gonna shout, all my troubles over. You know I gotta thank God. Thank Him for being so good. How I got over, how'd I make it over? You know my soul look back and wonder, how'd I make it over? How I got over, I had to cry in the midnight hour, coming on over. You know my soul look back and wonder, how'd I make it over? I'm gonna wear a diadem in the new Jerusalem. I'm gonna walk the streets of gold. It's in the homeland of the soul. I'm gonna view the host in white. They've been traveling day and night, coming up from every nation. They're on their way to the great coronation, coming from the north, south, east, and west. They're on their way to the land of rest. And then we're gonna join the heavenly choir. We're gonna sing and never get tired. And then we're gonna sing somewhere around God's altar. We're gonna shout, all our troubles over. You know I gotta thank God. Thank Him for being so good.
All right, thank you, God, for being so good. That is LaDon Robusky, and she is the daughter of the Reverend McClung and his grandson. This is a talented family. So, family, we need y'all to move in. We still have other people coming in, so if you have a little space next to you, just move on in. My name is Deborah Scott. I am the CEO of Georgia Stand Up, and I'm delighted to be here. Our next, I call it Queen of the South. She don't like it, but the Queen of the South is Doris Crenshaw. All right. The Queen of the South is Doris Crenshaw. But joining us in this is the incomparable Miss Doris Crenshaw, founder and CEO of the Southern Youth Leadership Development Institute, whose 60 years of activism continues to uplift and inspire the generations. Can we have a few words from you, ma'am?
Thank you, Deborah, for anointing me queen. I do not accept that. And then, on a serious note, let's thank Reverend McClung for his vision and his stick-to-itness, which is what we did 70 years ago. Stick to it. We got to get back to stick-to-itness. Amen? I am here to introduce to some and bring to others my friend, the Congressman Samari Figurs. Samari Figurs is a child of the movement. His father was a lawyer who sued the Ku Klux Klan and won. Amen? And Samari got my attention Well, I've been watching him as he grew up, but when he ran for Congress, and there were a whole lot of people in that field running for Congress, he declared that he was going to make the Montgomery bus boycott in its rightful place in history because we deserved it. So he immediately got my attention. In fact, I wrote him a check that day. But he's an example of young people emerging to what we have today. We have a talented group of young people, a passionate group of young people who are determined to lift our people up. And because of his stick-to-itness, and because he's a trained lawyer, is that right? Trained lawyer that worked in the Justice Department, and that he and Terry Sewell are working today to make Rosa Parks Day a national holiday. And because he's dedicated to representing Tuskegee, Montgomery, Mobile, and because of what he stands for, we on tomorrow night are awarding him the Rosa Parks Change Agent Award in the name of Virginia and Clifford Durr. Let me bring my friend, the congressman, the brightest congressman on the Hill, Mr. Congressman, the Honorable Samari Figgis. I get a check for that.
She just told me she'd get her check back for that. Well, I want to thank you, Ms. Crenshaw, for anointing me with all of those kind words and titles and adjectives. And Reverend McClung, thank you for not just your stewardship, but for the history lesson that you just gave us all. This is ultimately about standing here and recognizing history. As Ms. Crenshaw, well, before I go any further, Ms. Crenshaw is you don't really understand Doris Crenshaw until you get to Washington, D.C. And when I was early up there, President Jimmy Carter passed away. And as a member of Congress, you get invited, to the funeral. I didn't know President Carter. But I found out when I walked into the funeral that this woman did. Invited to be there by the family of a former president, to be there at his final farewell. And this again happened when Alexis Herman passed away. Some of you may know Alexis Herman from Mobile, who went on to become Secretary of Labor. They all know and are connected and tied to Doris Crenshaw in a way that shows you why she's able to pull together the support that she does historically for this event, and why she's able to keep shining this light in the way she has on Rosa Parks' legacy. And so I just want to give it up for Doris Crenshaw one time for keeping the legacy going. As she stated when I was on the campaign, and I really didn't even say it as like a campaign pillar or anything that I was particularly running on. I said it because I believe it. When you connect all the dots, right, those dots that ultimately lead right back here to this pulpit, literally, there is no Congressman Shamari Figures. There's no Congresswoman Terry Sewell. There's not a Congressman Earl Hilliard or an Arthur Davis or any other black person that has represented Alabama in Congress without Montgomery. I honestly believe, and I have said this in Mobile, I have said it in Tuskegee, I have said it in Washington, D.C. on the floor of the House, the single most important city in the world of the 20th century is Montgomery, Alabama. And that is because of the movement that was born out of here, the movement that was born here in this church, the movement that was born out of an extension of what had just recently happened over in Mississippi with Emmett Till, but with what happened with Rosa Parks here in Montgomery. It was a call to action. It was a call to get to work, a call to get to business. That speech we just heard from Dr. King, the words that always resonate with me when I hear it were literally within the first paragraph where he said, "We are here for serious business." And they knew, even in 1955, they knew that what they were organizing would still be impactful some 70 years later in 2025. And what ultimately came out of that movement was a Civil Rights Act, was obviously Supreme Court litigation that integrated public transportation and other accommodations, a Fair Housing Act, a Voting Rights Act that we know is under attack here 70 years later in an attempt to take us back to where we were in 1955 in terms of protections and being able to be represented in Congress. So I'm not standing here without the totality of what happened here. And the legacy, when I hear the word legacy, what I think of is the present recognition of things past. And the legacy of this city, of this bus boycott, of Rosa Parks, of others in this fight, in this struggle, it is undeniable. The power of it, what it meant, how it changed the world. Not just here, this extends back even to the Tuskegee Airmen. I was just recently, during late September, the last Tuskegee Airman, the last one who actually flew combat missions in World War II, he died, 100 years old. And we found this out. We did a moment of silence on the floor. And to show you how powerful that legacy is to people, in that moment of silence, we had every Democrat and Republican from Alabama. We had the Speaker of the House, who's a Republican, Mike Johnson from Louisiana. When he found out that this had happened, he said, "I will preside over that," because they know the power of the legacy of what these men and women went through at the time they went through it to create the change that they did that literally, as Pastor McClung said, changed this world. It literally changed the world. And so that is why I run every day in Washington, D.C. to make sure that we can acknowledge appropriately the legacy of Montgomery and this bus boycott. Now, the other thing I'll say is, Ms. Crenshaw, with all due respect, your generation, you did your job. And my generation, we're not doing our job. What we have is a situation now in America where if you are a black person over the age of 55, you are the most likely person to go and cast a ballot. If you are a black person under the age of 40, you are the most unlikely person to go vote. And the reason there was such a fixation on voting in the civil rights movement was because that's how we can make sure. It's an insurance plan. All of those victories that we secured in the civil rights movement, they came with an insurance plan called the right to vote. It did not come with a supplemental insurance plan of what you do when you choose not to go vote. Complaining doesn't change things. Right? Screaming and shouting won't change things. Saying how wrong people are for doing what they do or voting how they vote or electing who they elect, that doesn't change things. What we showed here in Montgomery of what changes things is when we actually get up and go out and vote. And so I know that's why you ultimately do a lot of the work you do, but it's no longer your job to do. It's my job to make sure we're doing it, and it's others in my generation. And so my charge here today is for everybody that sits here that is under the age of 55, and I know that's everybody in here. All right? That's all of us. You too, McClung. All right? Is to make sure that we understand the legacy of what happened here. Make sure we understand the risks of what people went through here. Right? It's amazing that, and I don't know the full history, but it's amazing to me that this church was never bombed, that this church was never set on fire, that this church was never threatened with other actions of violence to tear it down, because they were risking it all in being here. And that interstate outside, as he showed, is part of the retribution that was shown. But people risk their lives for us to be able to gather, to congregate, and to make our voices heard. And that's something that we cannot take lightly. And they did it in this case for 381 days. And more importantly, they did it without a cell phone. They did it without social media. They did it without live streaming. Can you imagine the progress they would have made if Dr. King had a Facebook account? Right? That's serious. If they could do it then, we can certainly do it now, because people risk too much for us to be here. And the last thing I'll end with is this, because the last time somebody introduced me and told the story of my father suing the Klan, when I sat down, somebody told me you cannot speak and not tell us about the story. And so real quickly, here's what happened. In 1981, there was a man in Birmingham who shot and killed a police officer. A black man shot and killed a white police officer. They moved the trial down to Mobile, Alabama, because of notoriety, change of venue for publicity reasons. The jury in Mobile was a hung jury at the end of the trial. They didn't convict him, they didn't acquit him, but he wasn't convicted. And so the Klan that night met in Mobile. They said, if a black person can get away with killing a white person, we should be able to kill one of them. And so that night they went out on Spring Hill Avenue in Mobile, and they saw a black teenager walking down the street, bouncing a basketball on his way to a grocery store to buy a pack of cigarettes, named Michael Donald. And they kidnapped him, they beat him, they slit his throat, and then they lynched him in a tree directly across the street from the then head of the Klan in the state of Alabama. And at the time, the national head of the Klan, the National Klan's headquarters was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And my father filed a lawsuit. Morris Dees joined in that lawsuit. And for the first time in American history, the Klan was held liable for lynching a black person. It bankrupted the Klan. It bankrupted the Klan, at least financially. Right? It obviously didn't bankrupt their mission. It didn't bankrupt the hate that led to that. And for the rest of my father's life, he would still receive Christmas cards from the Klan. They risked it all. And when you connect those dots, even as late as 1984, when that lawsuit was finally settled, and there were criminal cases there too, one of those people was actually put to death, which was the first time that somebody had been put to death in America for lynching a black person. But when you connect all those dots and all that history, it all comes back here to this pulpit of people in this state being willing to risk it all for the betterment of society, for equal treatment, for equal rights, for equal access, for an equal opportunity to make America be true to what it said on paper. And I'm able to sit in Congress because of it. And so, Ms. Crenshaw, I will keep up the work and keep up the fight with you. Thank you.
All right, what we've been waiting for. This has been so rich already. So we need to own our media, right? So yes, we're going to support our own, right? So we're going to support Roland Martin. Yes. Because this man was bold enough, brave enough, smart enough to start his own media company. And he is going to facilitate this rich conversation. I mean, we have the powerhouses here today. So we want to bring up Roland Martin. Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I got a green light. There we go. Audio man was asleep back there. All right, yeah. So how are we doing? Good. Glad to see everyone here. Let's get this thing started. We have two panels. We broke it up. And so first up, please step on up, please. Dr. Bernice A. King, Leon Hampton, Deborah Archer, Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III. Step on up, step on up. Also, if y'all, Deborah made the point, what happens when you own, you ain't got to ask nobody for permission. So feel free to post on your social media. We are actually live right now. We are live streaming this on my network. So you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin, or the Black Star Network app. So let folks know that we'll be live streaming this all day, and then we'll also be live tonight at 5 p.m. at the mass meeting during the show then as well. And so that's also important because too often these events are not covered. And I want to start there. No, I'm going to come back to that, the whole issue of the importance of black-owned media. But I do want to start right here in Deborah and Bernice, y'all can really speak to that. I want y'all to speak to this first. So if you come through the front door, so you have all of these pictures and posters of this amazing history in this church. And on the right side, just outside in the foyer, it says Unsung Heroine, and it's a portrait of Joanne Robinson. And the thing for me is that whenever we talk about this boycott, whenever folk lay the story out, and folk talk about obviously what took place on December 1st with Rosa Parks, what took place with the election of Dr. King to the MIA, this historic speech, you cannot get to this event if you don't deal with how you got to this event. And too many people, and I've traveled all around the country, and the reality is, I dare say, folk around this country and this world, and many black people, have no idea that it was a group of black women, the Women's Political Council, that actually wanted to boycott long before 55. Right. Anybody, so let's do a test here. So how many folk in this room actually has their own copy of Joanne Robinson's memoir? That's the problem. So when I interviewed Fred Gray, and he walked through the conversation with her, I immediately got the book, and this book is available. And David Garrow really pressed upon her to write this. A couple of days later, I'll start with you, Bernice. A couple of days after the Broward Board of Education, she sends a letter to the bus company, says, integrate. So the reason I wanted to start with this is because there are far too many women. We were talking last night, we were checking in. I said, I'm always quoting your mama, because at Dr. King's funeral, the white folks would not let black media into the press corps to cover Dr. King's funeral. Yes, white media at a black church, Dr. King's funeral would not let black media into the press. And Lerone Bennett, Simeon Booker went to Coretta Scott King and told them, and she said, send word, if Ebony and Jet are not in that press pool, there will be no press pool. So the only reason Monetta Sleep was able to become the first black Pulitzer Prize for photography for that photo, that iconic photo, that only happened because she said, y'all gonna put black media in that press pool. And so talk about why we have to write the history today of the sisters who have been excluded from the history of the black freedom movement.
Thank you for asking that question. I just want to say it's very critical that we always tell that truth. I always say to people that my father was catapulted into leadership, but it really was the women who set the stage. And in terms of Joanna Robinson and all of the others of the Women's Political Council, if it were not for them, we wouldn't have a movement. Because even though they recommended the boycott, had been looking for an opportunity to boycott, this became the moment they reached out to Edie Nixon, and then Edie Nixon brought in my father, Ralph Abernathy, and ultimately others, the actual strength of that movement was undergirded, even after that, by women. Doris, you're the witness that women helped to pass out, actually mimeograph, and pass out those leaflets.
Well, first of all, what is amazing about the story is that, and this is, we're definitely going to get into this because it's the strategy part. So she grabs 2 Alabama A&M students. They go to the basement of the president's building, make the copies, and then calls 9, 10. I'm sorry. Then calls.
Make it right.
Then calls 9 or 10 other sisters, and then they distribute it. So they already had a distribution system established to communicate. So that was already a strategy in place.
All right, that's a lesson right there. The women are always ready. We already got the plan in order. But anyway, I wanted to emphasize not just them looking for that opportunity, but all throughout the movement. When you think about the strategy sessions, the men are written about. Isn't that interesting? The men are written about in the Holy Bible, too. And you see the sprinklings of women, Mary.
That's called his story, not history.
Exactly. So we're going to do her story today. But the women were in strategy sessions. Joanna Robinson was on the board as well at the MIA. And I want to make this point. If the women did not show up, if they did not participate, we wouldn't be here today.
Right.
Period.
Right.
It took something special for this movement to move forward in the face of threat and danger and manifested threat, bombs, bombings. I tell people all the time that if my mother had been one of those sister girls who said, you better get me out of here, when the house was bombed, my father would not have been able to continue to do what he was doing.
Wow.
So all of the women that you see, Juanita Abernathy, Evelyn Lowry, Jean Young, all of the other wives, my mother, all of the other wives, they were the real backbone of that movement. Because if those women did not stand strong in the face of all of that, it would have been over. Brothers, come on now, testify.
Well, in fact, Andrew Young, so when they living in New York, he said they had just got a nice place, some new drapes and everything.
Exactly.
And they're watching TV, and they were seeing what was happening down south. And he was like, listen, I just got a new job. We good. Everything is great. He said, and his wife said, we going back. Exactly. He looked at her like, well, we just got here. What are we doing? And she was like, well, I'm going back. You can stay right here. And he was like, well, I guess we go ahead and leave. But he literally said, it was his wife that made him go back. And the reason I wanted to start there, and we got folk today that go back and forth, this nonsense becomes men and women, sister, all that sort of stuff. But Deborah, why I wanted to start there, because what was always fascinated me about the movement, and I appreciate the speeches, I appreciate the marches, I appreciate the nonviolent action, but I have always been fixated on the strategy. And the reason why I think this story is so important, when you talk about Joanna Robinson and Women's Political Council, is because you cannot have a movement if you do not have an organizing entity.
That's right. That's right.
And so let's start there. Because there was a Women's Political Council, they were not moving as individuals, they were moving as a collective. And that collective is what led to this boycott, which then led to the next 13 years of what's called the Black Freedom Movement or the Civil Rights Movement. Speak to that.
And somebody else can speak. I just want to say, you said something real important just now. You said there was already the Women's Political Council.
Right.
Before there was a Montgomery Improvement Association. I just wanted us not to miss that.
Right.
Okay, sister.
Well, I appreciate, first, I want to say I'm just honored to be here, to be among so many people in the spaces that have made my life possible, right? We're all living unimaginable lives because people before us made sacrifices, because they led, because they survived, because they bled, so that we could have these lives that no one could have imagined would be possible. So it's just really an honor to be here. And I appreciate you talking about strategy, because it was important then and it was important now. We talk about the principle of separate can never be equal, and that was an important principle that was pronounced to fight segregation. But equally important was the strategy that went from making that a concept, a belief, to a legal reality, and then to make that a reality in people's lives. Those who love yesterday are always going to fight against tomorrow, and they're good at it. We have to be better. We have to be strategic. And that is a lesson I take from the Montgomery bus boycott, because it was not just about transportation. Although transportation was important, I appreciate hearing the story about the highway, because transportation, those days, transportation today, determines who gets access to opportunity, who gets to live the American dream, who gets to live lives of fulfillment and opportunity and joy and good health. And so often, back then and today, we have structured our transportation systems in a way to exclude black folks, to destroy black neighborhoods and black community, to destroy black wealth. And so that is an important part of the story. But for me, a lesson is about the strategy, about thinking about what collective action means, thinking about what justice, equality means. You know, in the speech that we heard from Dr. King at the beginning of this session said that we are going to push our citizenship to the full extent. We need to think about what citizenship means and then how we fight for it. So then it was a challenge to figure out how we move from reality to that vision of justice, how we make America live up to its promises. America's always been wonderful at making beautiful and grand, sweeping promises, and real sorry at living up to that reality. So I say that the work that I do at the ACLU is about bridging that gap between the America that was promised and the America that is, and that's about strategy. How do we pull together all of the pieces, all of the resources that we have to move in that direction? It is not about law. It is not just about law. It was important that we passed these incredible civil rights laws, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Act, to make what we dreamed of, what we promised, put it into words. But we know that it was about much more. It was about making sure that we had powerful and strong communities that could come together and force this country to live up to those words. It was about having institutions and government officials who would force and enforce those rights that were now a part of our laws. It was about having courts that would make sure that they held those who violated laws accountable. And so that was the work that this movement did, and it's the work that we have to continue to do today as well. It's about that strategy.
Freddie, well, also, I think when we talk about this, because I want to deal with ego. Because when we hear many of the stories, we hear, well, men fighting, 1959, Roy Wilkins called Dr. King a radical. And Malcolm X comes along in 60, King goes from radical to moderate. You talk about infighting, Thurgood Marshall often complained about, he's like, Martin King's speeches, he leaves with all the bills. It was all this sort of back and forth. That's all ego. But what's fascinating about this is that these sisters laid the foundation, but when it launched, they took ego out and said, we will hand it to the preachers, y'all now take it. Let's talk about that, because how vital that was, because they could have easily said, hold up, we've been working this for a whole year, planning it, leading it, y'all need to stand behind us. But they removed egos and said, no, y'all now take it from here. Speak about why that was so critical and why it still is so critical.
Thank you. And I need to also give a shout out to Doris Crenshaw. I just want to thank you so much for your tenacity, your courage, and the fact that you were doing this back then as a young kid says so much about what's in your DNA. And so I thank you for your continuing this amazing movement. And so we salute you. I also have to say a special Thank you, because I feel a spirit of Sankofa here, where we are looking back in order to move forward. And so to be in this sacred space at Holt Street and to hear what we heard from the pastor has blessed me tremendously. One of the things I'll say, Roland, in response, is that it was so crucial because in that context, of course, women were treated sadly as third-class citizens, not even second-class citizens, but third-class citizens. And black women, to quote Malcolm, most disrespected, most unprotected, most neglected in the country. Black women, if women were third class, then black women were even further back. And so black women having a first-class mentality, basically saying it ain't about the credit, it's about the community. And I park right there because that's what black women have always been about. They've always had an Ubuntu spirit that said, if my community progresses, if my community progresses, my children progress. If my children progress, then my men progress. And so black women have had a spirit that the rest of us need to get on board and understand. And that is, if it ain't about the community, then what are we here for? And so black women did not get the credit back then, but now historians who are now conscious are looking back at what happened and said, listen, if it weren't for the women, we would not be here. And so Martin King, E.D. Nixon, all of them, the stage is set by the brilliance and the boldness of black women who weren't about the credit, they were about the community. What a lesson for us today, and that is, if we're going to rise above what we're dealing with today, it's got to be about community and not about who gets the credit. If it's about the credit, then the community is going to suffer in the process.
Well, Leon, I wanted to set it up that way because when the Black Lives Matter movement began to really blow up. Jamal and I were talking, and Jamal will often talk about that this was the first, we always talk about, this was the first movement in the history of black folks that the church didn't lead. But when you actually know the story, the church didn't start this. So the reason why that's important, I think, to take it from then to present day is we have to be willing to recognize that it doesn't matter which institution or organizations in our community is starting a movement. It's how do we all now work together to say, okay, y'all kicked it off, y'all started, now we're going to come in and do our thing. And the Target boycott, we'll do the second panel as an example of that, in that Target announces their thing January 24th. Nina Turner Group announces the next day we'll do a boycott. Sister Nakima Levy and other sisters in Minneapolis announce a boycott. They bring in Tamika Mallory Until Freedom. March 5th, Target fast, Jamal, the churches start. That's it. So again, that's working in unison to achieve the same goal.
Yeah. So good. I want to echo the rest of these and appreciate Ms. Crenshaw for giving me the opportunity to be on this stage with so many great voices. I want to start with this. We have to remember that Dr. King, yes, he was a civil rights leader, but he was a preacher. And he was a preacher that was clear about his calling. And because he had clarity about his calling, he could move without ego. People who are unclear about what God has called them to do constantly need the validation and the attention from other people. But when you are moved by conviction, and when you are moved by a calling that comes from God, it causes you to not worry about credit, not worry about attention, and keep moving and work across the aisle. One of the things that is so poignant to me when I listened to the speech by Dr. King that was made from Holt Street, in the very first paragraph, he gave clarity. He said, first of all, we are here in a general sense because we are American citizens. From that one sentence, everyone in the room know why we were here. Then he went on to say, but we're here in a very specific sense because of the bus situation. Whoever the leader is, there must be clarity about what we are fighting for. And I think what I'm seeing is a people that are frustrated angry, but unclear. What does success look like in this movement? How do we know that we have won? And until that leader become clear on that, we'll never make the progress that we need to make.
Anyone can jump in. But also, I think we have to, when we talk about his story versus history, what is revisionist and then what is real. Whenever this conversation is talked about, folks say the Montgomery bus boycott, it was about ending segregation on buses. That's the folk who didn't actually read the original demands. The original demands of the MIA was not to end segregated busing. It was to be treated with respect and a list of others. It was when the city rejected the compromise, then they said, now let's expand it. So let's talk about how when we are trying to achieve a goal, that you may have to alter your stance and maybe initially not try to go for what you think is the home run, but you got to sometimes hit some singles and some doubles that build up to that. So let's talk about why that is so important, because that's often an ignored aspect. They didn't start off saying end segregated busing. Let's talk about how we need to be thinking about that in present day when we're talking about taking moments to movements. Anybody can start.
I think that's why it's important to study the movement. And I can't overemphasize that enough. I think we kind of pick pieces here and there and run with it, but we really have to study. Daddy said in '64 that I believe the philosophy and strategy of nonviolence, I suggest that the philosophy and strategy of nonviolence immediately become a subject of study and serious experimentation in all fields of human conflict, by no means excluding relations between nations. And so when we study the movement and how everything took place, that was a key point, which was the negotiation part of this, the behind the scenes part of this, and how it connected with the direct action part of this. When you study the whole aspect of it, I mean, there's a whole process to this that I think is fundamentally important for success. The nexus is important. The goal is important, but you also have to continue to adjust strategy consistently. If you start out with one thing, it may have to be adjusted along the way. It doesn't mean you give up on the ultimate goal, because you need momentum in movements. Movements need victories along the way, and sometimes you may not get the ultimate victory starting out. Trust me, voting rights was always at the core of everything. But it wasn't until '65 that we got the Voting Rights Act. And so that's what I want to.
Well, in fact, those three laws were actually one original bill.
Exactly.
And it had to be broken up.
Exactly. And something that resonated with me when you were talking is that it was about fighting segregation, but it was also fighting for dignity and human rights. Because our goal should be about what we are against. And they were fighting against segregation, but it also has to be what we're fighting for. And we often stop at what we're fighting against and forget to move to the fighting for part, because that requires creativity, it requires vision, it requires us to understand what the goal is. We are so often caught up in just defending the victories that we had in the past, or moving forward and thinking a year or two ahead, when we need to think about plans decades in advance. I don't know if people have watched the movie Dune, and there's a line in the movie that says, our plans are measured in centuries. Our plans need to be measured in centuries. And then we think about, what is the short-term goal? If we want to get to this vision of justice 100 years from now, 50 years from now, what needs to be done today? What needs to be done next year? What needs to be done in 5 years? And what needs to be done in 20 years? It is not an overnight. So many of the young folks that I engage with are impatient, and it is amazing and beautiful, and they're going to help us get to where we need to go, because they are demanding justice and they want it now. But we also have to understand that some of the sweeping plans, the transformational change that we need, the durable change that we need, requires long-term planning. People think that we went from Plessy versus Ferguson, and then there was the Brown versus Board of Education decision, and it was an overnight kind of thing. And instead,
but the thing though, the impatience is good
It
and
is.
needed, but the impatience and the patience actually work together at the same time.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to be a part of this circle of struggle and resistance. We all have a different role to play, and it's important for us to have people who are impatient, demanding it now. They're in the streets, they're engaged in direct action. But there also need to be people, as we've said before, who are thinking about the long-term strategy. The tacticians who are saying, okay, that's the goal, and what am I going to do each and every day? What is a role that the ministers are going to play? What is the role that lawyers are going to play? What is the role that the community is going to play? Not one of us is not going to get us to justice alone. All of us need to be working together, strategizing together.
I love reading. Martin Depp has a book on Operation Breadbasket, which is a phenomenal book.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the executive committee in Chicago. He's a white pastor. As a matter of fact, he's still living. So talking about the story is amazing. So I love reading the book. When they were going to negotiate, they would say, okay, we're going to the meeting. You agree with nothing. Going to the meeting, you act a fool.
Right. That was a strategy.
Okay, you pray, and you gonna be the compromiser. Everybody got their role, and so they would go in, and so we'll just fast it. But again, that was a thought process. That's what I thought was always amazing. Freddie, as we were talking about, again, impatience versus patient. And again, in discussing this, on that table outside, it says 381-day boycott. But it wasn't planned for 381 days. It was a one-day boycott. Right. Then they said, well, let's do 5. Then, all right, let's keep going. So let's talk about how we need to get folk today to understand you got to start somewhere, and you can't try to create this massive thing unless you at least do something one time, one day. That was it was one day how it started.
One day, and I'm so glad we're recapturing lessons from the movement, because, again, they organized it for one day. And here's a powerful piece for me, and that is, and I love your prior question, Roland, about how we adjusted strategy accordingly. And here's what encourages me in this era, and that is that racism and white domination, some call it white supremacy, ain't nothing supreme about them, but white domination and racism always overreach. And when they overreach, it always sets the stage for, I'm in church, God to do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or imagine. Here's the trip. All they're asking for is to be treated decently on the buses. Treat us with dignity. We won't even sit in the front. We want to be treated with, we don't want to go pay our fare and then go to the back of the bus and then have to get on the bus from there. We want to be treated with dignity. White domination and racism pushes back on that. Adjustments take place, and before you know it, a civil rights movement begins to take the first steps toward those 3 law changes that transformed the country and became the second Reconstruction. So always be aware, white domination, racism is stupidly going to always overreach, play their hand, and when they do, it opens up the door for us to get even more than we set out to get in the first place. So I think that's very important in this moment to know that racism is arrogant. Racism is going to overreach. Let them do what they're going to do, but what they meant for evil, God is going to somehow turn for our good. That always happens. So here it is, Ro. I had to get to that to get to your question, and that is, it's so important, therefore, for us to recognize, again, we have a one-day boycott because we need a one-day victory. Because sometimes we've got to have a small victory to let us know we can do this. Oh, we did it one day. Right. We can do this thing 5 days.
There you go.
Oh, we did it 5 days. We can organize before lift, our own MIA lift. And as a consequence, they have the carpooling that took place. We had Uber before there was ever such a thing right here in Montgomery. But it takes those small steps and not being discouraged when white racism overplays its hand.
Leon, after the Zimmerman verdict in the murder of Trayvon Martin, folks were upset. They were angry, and it was all this emotion. And so there was a group that was pulled together to say, man, let's do something. So we're on these calls and everything, and folks are talking, and all of a sudden, I mean, smart, brilliant people, organizers, all kind of different people, and going, here, we're going to do this and do this. Let's call so-and-so and this and this and this. And I was sitting on the calls chilling. Probably about the third call, I said, it's going to last about another meeting. So I called up another brother called Jeff Johnson, and Jeff's like, yeah, this going to probably last about one more meeting. So then I called the sister who organized it. I said, now you know this ain't going to last. Roland, I can't believe you were saying that. I said, no, I want to explain to you. I said, it's some smart people in this group. Why we beating? 2, who are we representing? None of that has been established. So what happened was these really smart, brilliant people went from meeting to fundraising, website, social media, and I said, we ain't established what are we doing. So the brilliance of this, and it's why it's so important, is that they had clarity from the outset and established an agenda items from the outset, going back to the impatient versus the patient, took it slow and methodical and had a build. I believe one of the greatest mistakes today is that many of our discussions, we go from a meeting to a bank account, website, social media apparatus, playing the whole deal, and we haven't actually thought through why are we doing this and who are we representing.
Clarity of mission, which must come from a deeper place other than frustration and anger. There has to be a moral conviction that says these people deserve better. And when people are not at the foundation, the movement fall apart. You have to look at the person and say, you know what, that person deserves dignity. And every time we meet, every time we move, we're moving on behalf of that person. And so I think the reason that we keep finding ourselves in this, quagmire, we keep going around and around, is because we have not established that clarity. It's what I said earlier. And then we don't build strategy around the mission. Every movement has to have infrastructure to support it. If you don't have the infrastructure, it falls apart. Let me go back to one thing that you were talking about with strategy. If we are not intentional about preserving the laws that were put in place, progress will not be seen. And we do that by securing our judges. There is no civil rights movement without a Frank Johnson, who was in the seat that was able to look at the TRO and injunction and said, no, they will march from Selma. And so as politicians are elected, we have to stop asking, what are you going to do for my 501c3? And start asking, who are you looking to put on the bench? Because you can pass all the laws that you want to pass, but when it get challenged in district court,
right,
there must be a federal court judge who's willing to uphold it.
But what we have to do, we have to, and this is going to be the final round before we have a song on the next panel, we have to be the ones who are connecting the dots. We have to, first of all, I think a lot of us are assuming people know. We have to connect the dots to, in order to get those judges are appointed by the president. Those judges are confirmed by the Senate. So if you don't vote in Senate races, who is in control of the Senate will dictate whether the judges get passed or they get denied. That's one. And we were talking about on state level, in your state, are judges appointed, elected? Are they, it all depends. And we talk about judges, you have your federal judges, your state Supreme Court judges, you have your district judges, you have municipal judges. There were for so long, black people kept going to Washington, D.C. to fight criminal justice reform, not realizing that if you elect progressive district attorneys, they actually are at the front of criminal justice reform. And folk went, dang. So part of this process, I believe, the education process, the strategy, is that those in the know have to do what Joe Madison said out there, brother. You got to put it where the goats can get it to connect the dots So folk know, oh, wait a minute. So when I do vote here, that impacts this and impacts this. If more people understood that in 2016, they would have realized the difference between a Hillary and a Trump had they looked at the ages of the Supreme Court justices and knowing how to vote. But the connecting of the dots is important. You can speak that in the final round if you want to, or make your final comments. Go right ahead. We'll start with you, Bernice.
So I'm glad you said connect the dots, because that's one of the fundamental things I think we keep missing, and that is dissemination of information. All throughout the movement, it goes back to studying it again. Education was a consistent part of that, educating the community. The reasons the churches were chosen, because at that time, the churches were front and center to the community. It's a little bit different today. And so we have to find all the different avenues that once we have the strategy, once we have the plan, the masses of people need to know, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And you can't just do that one time. It has to be consistent. Yes. Thus, the mass meetings that took place in these various churches. So whatever the form of communication we use today, the message has to be clear. The messengers have to be on one accord. You can't have 1,000 different messages going here and there, because it creates confusion for the people. So you even have to have a strategy in how we're going to communicate. Who is the best to communicate? Not necessarily one person, but what people are the best to communicate it. Stay together consistently. They were having mass meetings every week.
Come on.
They were having strategy sessions every day and into the night, in the mid-morning. So all of that needs to come into play today. I know we got Twitter. I know we got social media, all that kind of stuff, Instagram, IG, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it's a good tool, but when you got too much noise coming around it creates more confusion.
And if
so if you don't have a strong strategy.
And if you do not control the tool.
Exactly.
A mass meeting, you control the meeting space.
Exactly.
You control who walks into the building.
And the messaging.
There you go. And so before I get to the final comment, the brilliance of SCLC was that you could not join unless you went through Dorothy Cotton's education class. And people keep overlooking that. We let people join our organizations who have not been trained, who have not been taught, who have not been analyzed. That's just another particular point right there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll say is one thing.
See what happens when you read?
One thing that's amazing to me is that you had all of these brilliant leaders in the movement, Dr. King, Andrew Young, Ralph Abernathy, who could have gone out and did their own thing. But the scripture says that we are to endeavor to keep the unity of the faith. As leaders, we have to make sure that we protect unity at all costs. So if a Dr. Jamal Bryant Harrison say we're not going to Target, then we are not going to Target. We're not going to Target. I'll tell you, Dr. Harrison in our church.
But when he says we're not going to Target, he has to walk us through why we're not going to Target.
Sure. Assuming all those things in place.
Right. Well, see, I never assume. Because well, I'm saying that because there are a lot of folk who make the declaration, but who never did the work to lay the foundations. Folk know why we're not going to Target. So when they run into a brother or sister who didn't hear him, they can't explain the why.
Sure. And Dr. Harrison, I think, did a great job in explaining that. And so assuming all of those things
he was helped by some
are in place, is always a good brother.
Yesterday was Alpha Founders Day. That was just for him.
Assuming all of those, assuming all of those things are in place, and we have a trusted leader who has the capital in the community, who didn't just show up yesterday.
No. I want you to run past that. Again, Joe Madison say, put it with a ghost again. And when you say capital in the community, you're not talking economic capital.
That's right.
You're talking cultural
capital.
Connection capital.
Right. That's right.
Go ahead.
So has that influence in the community, and he put out, this is what we're doing, along with others who help. As leaders, we have to get on board with that. And so in my church, we normally honor our honor roll students every 9 weeks, and we call all of them on the pulpit. And up until February or March, we were giving them Target gift cards. And so when Dr. Harrison put out the bulletin, Target Fast. So my administrator, who is just so wonderful, she didn't get the memo, and I take responsibility for that. And so we're on the pulpit in the middle of the honor roll ceremony, and she announces that we are giving Target gift cards. So I'm in a conundrum. I have to go now to the podium and say, we don't do Target here. But the leaders have to endeavor to keep the unity.
Yeah.
But if there's no unity from the pulpit,
right,
and in the mayor's office, and in the governor's office, then there's confusion in the pews. Right. And so my final words are, let's stay together. We can do anything.
He didn't talk about Al Green. Y'all stop it. He ain't saying that kind of let's stay together. All y'all grits-loving people, go ahead.
And let me go just a little further. Let me tell you how you know our unity is important. Because they use us to fight us. Because they know that if we ever get together,
right,
we can change the world.
I just want to take us back to the short term goals and thinking about this moment, because this moment we are in can feel overwhelming because our community is under attack. All of the things that we value and hold dear are under attack. All of the work that you all have done is under attack. As you were talking about the infrastructure for civil rights, it is under attack by our elected officials. And it feels like there's nothing we can do about that. But we can. The small victories are important. We certainly want to hold the line, defend everything that is important to us, and we will try and do that every single day. But delaying some of the harm, that can be a victory. Lessening the circle of harm, that can be a victory. Small wins are important, and we need to value those and fight for those, because those small wins will all come together, and eventually we will see that we were victorious because of the small wins came together. And I also want to talk about clarity. We are very clear that justice is about accountability. We are clear that justice is about ending segregation, but justice has to be so much more than that, and we have to get clarity on that. Justice is about being able to live with dignity. It's about having access to resources and opportunity. Justice is about investment in our communities. Justice is about repair of our communities. And we also have to have clarity of vision about how we're fighting for that as well.
Thank you. Professor Carr says that we are in the midst of a demolition derby. Everything that Professor Gray Carr, always on Black Star Network, Roland Martin. And Dr. Carr says that right now, everything that was built up during the Second Reconstruction is being subjected to this demolition that is taking place. And so it's so important for us to learn lessons as we connect those dots. When you all were talking about messaging, I almost shouted because of the fact that we talk about a political party that is always on message. Another party, we don't know what their message is. We also have to look at ourselves as a community and see, did we forget the lessons of this movement that started here, where they were always on message. Yes. Thank you, Bernice King, for reminding us of the mass meetings that took place so that the message was always clear. They were always on message, and in a day where the politics of gaslighting is always being utilized in order to mess with the minds and play on the ignorance of a constituency that does not read, that does not, and I'm not just talking about black folk, I'm talking about the fact that this is one of the most educated people in this country are black women. So I'm not talking about black folk alone. I'm talking about a country, an electorate that is subjected to the politics of gaslighting because of imputed ignorance, the lack of knowledge as it relates to civics and government and how they work, which Roland has already pointed out. And so being on message is so important. The second thing I want to say is I don't want us to underestimate the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. at the age of 26 years old gave leadership and became the voice of this movement because E.D. Nixon, Joanne Robinson had no problem with a millennial, no, not even millennial, a Gen Zer saying, I'm going to put you as the voice of this movement. You got to give Montgomery credit because they said this has to be multi-generational. It cannot be just all old folk, all young folk. It has to be multi-generational. And the generations came together and fueled a movement. And then here it is, Martin King Jr., Morehouse, Crozier, Boston University, theologically prepared to give leadership and articulate a theology of justice. Here's what kills me today, and that is you have some preachers who've been pushed by Trump to get into the movement now, but they don't have a theology of justice that gives substance to what it is they're trying to do. And so it's very important that we have a theology of justice. King in that speech, if we are wrong, then God Almighty is wrong. If we are wrong, then Jesus of Nazareth was some utopian thinker. He already had God theologically on the side of the fight for justice in this country. If we don't have a theology of justice that we're preaching from the pulpit, that is practiced in the streets, then what are we here for? We've got to have a theology of justice. I got it because my Savior said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to set the captives free, to heal those who are broken, open the eyes of the blind, deliver the downtrodden, proclaim the year of economic justice. We've got to have a theology of justice in our churches as opposed to a plantation theology that emphasizes individualism as opposed to the good of the whole community. And that's when we shall overcome.
Put your hands together for our first panel. Thank you so very much to our first panel. Give it up for Dr. Bernice King, Leon Hampton, Deborah Archer, Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III. Thank you so very much. Now, Deborah, is a photo or what is this? Okay, y'all taking a photo of the panel. So, folks, take seat. We got a second panel, trust me. It's going to be just as lit as the first one. Trust me. They're going to give you marching orders and everything. There you go. We got, all right, who's taking the photo? All right, you got everybody? All right. Where is he? Where is she? He? Where they at? Come on, bro. You got to move, bro. You got to be in place. Go on down there, right there. Here we go. All right, is that it? Baby, you got to come on. All right, time for a song to the second panel. Go ahead and hit it.
Now, Lord, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And, Lord, don't take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. Now, Lord, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And Lord, don't take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. nobody. I try to treat everybody the same. But every time I turn my back, they scandalize my name. Oh, Jesus, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And Lord, don't take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. Now when my folks would slay me, these things they would try to do, but Lord, don't touch them, but within their hearts, make them give their lives to you. Oh, Master, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And Lord, don't take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. Lord, I don't bother nobody. I try to treat everybody the same. But every single time I turn my back, they scandalize my name. Oh, Jesus, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And Lord, don't take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. Just lead me all around. Just lead me all around.
All right, folks. We often talk about the leaders and the work that they do. We talk about where they were men, they had wives. The women had husbands. We often forget, though, that they also had children. And it's very difficult when those of us praise them and salute them. But for those children, mom and daddy often were not home when they were growing up. So put your hands together for the daughter of Andrew Young, Andrea Young.
So great to be here. I just got to hear my national president, Deborah Archer. I'm the executive director of the ACLU in Georgia. So we are continuing the work. Doris Crenshaw, always our leader. Thank you so much for putting this program out here. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, but as we heard today, you know, one day that led to 5 days, that led to 300 days, that led to a movement that changed the world. And so our young people need that inspiration today, and so it's one of the reasons I'm here. Because I need that inspiration too, because we are in a battle for the soul of America once again. And thank you all so much for being a part of it, and for this wonderful team that has put all of this together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, time for our second panel. Please welcome to the front of the church, Latasha Brown, Jayden Williams, Reverend Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant, Kappa, with black and gold shoes on, and black pants with a gold belt, and a gold wristband. Man, he wanted to be an alpha so bad. He just wanted to be an alpha. Let me just let you have my alpha ring. You can wear it for the program. All right, y'all. Let's get right. I want to start it this way, and just quickly from all three of you. What is the most important thing that you have learned or taken away from this boycott that took place 70 years ago, that sticks with you in the work that you do today?
Walk with me, Lord. Won't you walk with me? Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this tedious journey, I want Jesus just to walk with me. I wanted to start that just as I always start my talks, not as entertainment, but to bring us in presence of spirit to understand that at the end of the day, we talk about strategy and we spend so much time around strategy, but for me, it was really the spirit of the movement. It was people believed in something greater than themselves. There were people were tapping in, not to the U.S. government or to the Constitution, but there was something in them that said that they were to be free. The same thing that moved Harriet Tubman, a sister who couldn't read or write. The same thing that moved so many of our people to hold on. So for me, it was really the spirit of the movement.
I would, good afternoon or good morning. Where are we?
It's all the same.
Yes.
Somewhere it's afternoon, yes. Somewhere it's morning.
Let me first say how honored and humbled I am to be here, and I'm grateful for the privilege to be able to think out loud. I think that the takeaway, one of the takeaways is significance comes with opposition. Is that our generation, because of social media, have become addicted to affirmation, that anything that is contrary to that, we take it as hateration. Is that really what makes us great is the opposition makes us fine-tune what our position is, what our thought process is. What has been dizzying for me in the process is melanated opposition. I just always presumed it would be on the other side of the fence and not within the village. And so to walk through pastors still shopping at Target and to see grassroots leaders questioning what was the motive was not MAGA. It was not the alt-right or the White House, but people who should have been in the church. It really says that we've got to really bring closer in because our people, through our trauma, have adopted suspicion. And we take suspicion before we lease affirmation. And so fighting through, even when everybody doesn't understand it on day one, but it takes 362 before everybody is on board, has been a learning process.
Next up is Jayden. If you don't know, made history. He is the youngest ever elected mayor in the state of Georgia. Stockbridge, Georgia, 22 years old. What have you taken away?
You know, I think, and I'm a mayor now, of course, but where I started was advocacy in the NAACP. That's my training stone for what I'm doing today. And so when I think of the movement of the Montgomery Bus Boycott, I have to think of this moment. And so for my generation, just as many on the panel have said before now, my generation is focused more on social media and getting the affirmation of feeling loved on social media than we're feeling comfortable in comfortable situations where we should feel uncomfortable, because that's where we're living. We're living in uncomfortable times, but this movement showed us that they lived in uncomfortable times without social media and still made a difference to make sure that this uncomfortable situation wasn't just going to be for black folk. It was going to be for every single person in the community. That this boycott wasn't about transportation. It was about equality. It was about equity. It was about respect. And that's what we're demanding now, and that's what this movement is.
I want to start with what you just said, Latasha. He just said he started activism, but it was through the conduit of the NAACP. And I made this point in the first panel that, and I'm actually working on a book dealing with this, and what it's really doing is taking from Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here, KSR Community, where he said that there are 4 institutions that are primed to liberate Black America. They've never fully given themselves to that. He said the Negro Church, the Negro Press, fraternities and sororities, and professional and business organizations. And what we have to confront is that you can speak as an individual on social media, but there is no way we're going to be able to change anything if you do not do through an organization to make it happen. Let's talk about why people joining, participating, being involved in organizations is critical to moment to movement.
So you need infrastructure. Let me say this. We created an organization. I co-founded an organization with Cliff Albright called Black Voters Matter and BVM, thank you, Capacity Building Institute. And part of the reason why we started Black Voters Matter, this was right after we had been doing organizing. We've been doing organizing our capacity and our jobs and the different things that we did. But we saw that there was a need. As organizers, oftentimes we were struggling with a couple of things. We were always struggling with money. Just to get a van to organize, to mobilize folks, we were always struggling to get money. And oftentimes we would actually have to go in our own pockets and really be able to support some of the work that we're doing around elections. The second thing, though, is we also felt like that organizations, because I think some of the expansion of the difference when this was happening, right, is that you started getting the movement starts being structured as these, quote, nonprofits, right? And so you start getting this professionalization of all of these social justice organizations that, and for the most part, what I call them start being empire building organizations. That it's about me and my organization, I'm the biggest, I'm the baddest, and then I'm going to create these little babies around here. And then the focus is how you make sure that that organization is fed, not how the movement is fed. And so we intentionally wanted to create an organization that would help build out the ecosystem. That the second part is how do we create an organization that feeds and supports the ecosystem and not necessarily just feed ourselves. And then the third thing is we got frustrated with how Black folks was talked about, particularly in the South, as if, oh, you're in this red state. There ain't no red state or blue state, it's people states, right? And at the end of the day, in the South, when you're looking at areas like Georgia wasn't a fluke, y'all, right? Georgia was organized, right? Alabama wasn't a fluke. We have to be organized. Organized people are organized power. And so those three things, that became the mission of our creating this organization. So the first thing we wanted to do is to create a fund, and we had no money. But we did organize, and we wanted to create a fund. And so over the last 9 years, we've been able to actually give checks, $53 million that we have invested directly into over 800 Black grassroots groups. Secondly, we wanted to make sure in this ecosystem, so when we go in, the way that we're organized, and some groups may be in here that have gotten funds from us before, the way that we're organized, praise God, the way we're organized, there are people who wanted to create Black Voters Matter chapters. We're like, we don't want Black Voters Matter chapters, right? There are people in every community that's already doing work. Before we actually even create
hold on. So I want you to stop right there.
Yes.
Okay. But explain why you didn't want chapters.
Because we did not want to get so caught up in feeding and being performative and protecting ourselves that we would actually put ourselves in direct competition with the movement. Our goal is to not see ourselves as the army. The way I see it is we like the special ops, right? We already got the soldiers. Like you calling your special op teams when you need some folks, when you need some reinforcement. So we were very clear to have a model that it wasn't about Black Voters Matter and we just take care of Black Voters Matter. It was about Black Voters Matter. How do we take care of the people on the front lines who are always fighting? Y'all know the folks that when something go down in your community, you know who to call. When something goes down, you know when there's a police shooting, y'all know the same sister or brother that shows up. So we wanted wanted to create an organization to actually help gird and help those folks to build their capacity. And then even on terms of the media piece, we were very clear about we wanted to disrupt and this narrative that somehow black folk in the South didn't have any power, right? Or somehow that black people, that we were always contingent upon the benevolence of white folk, that if it wasn't about the benevolence of white Democrats, in some way that we could not capture any power. And so in our organizing and creating the organization, it was really based on some of the model from the movement. We were both Cliff and I are students of the movement. Matter of fact, we were some of the folks who led the movement were mentors of ours, right? Or we had the opportunity to meet in both the black power struggle and in the civil rights movement. So for us, it was really, and I think even what we can learn in this moment is that you got to have infrastructure. And you got to have infrastructure and be able to support some of the things that, and this isn't about Black Voters Matter, this is about, I'm talking about strategy, right? There are communities that we went in, one in particular, some folks may remember, I know you will recall, where we were down in South Georgia and we had a bus full of seniors. We went to a senior facility. And when we went to the senior facility, they actually made them, when we got ready to take them to vote, which was really like a block down, we had not planned on it, but they said, the seniors were like, oh, we coming in here, we getting on this bus, we getting on this black bus right here. Y'all got Black Voters Matter, or we riding with y'all. So they came and got on the bus, but there was a white administrator for the county that literally called and threatened the senior center, and said, get them off the bus, because they didn't want those seniors to ride on this bus. I'm saying this because at the end of the day, when we were pushing back, some of the folk in that community said, well, you know, his folks own the furniture company. You know, his folks own they're part of the bank down there. So there were people in that local community that really were afraid to speak out because they knew they would get the repercussions, because his folks so owned all the infrastructure. An organization like us said, we don't care about his bank, his furniture, or whatever. We'll come in and cut up, and we did, right? Ultimately, sometimes you have to be strategic to provide cover for other organizations that don't have the capacity or the wherewithal to do it, not because they're scared, but because they have to be strategic too,
right?
Because they have to live with them folks. So I'll wrap up and just say that part of our strategy and our model has been based off how do we replicate creating an organization that our sole purpose is to build movement.
Jamal, after you and others had the rally for Trayvon Martin in Sanford, it was all over. A group of us went to eat, went by Cheesecake Factory, and we were sitting there and we were talking, and at that table, when we were talking, one of the things that I kept saying was, what's the organization? What's the organization, and what's the motive? And we have to stay fixated on that, because if you do not have that entity, if you don't have something that people can actually join, where they can go get information from, then it ends up being a bunch of individual folk talking, but never being able to move as a collective to actually drive change.
Yeah, I didn't understand it until I began to push in this target movement, because I thought it was really just obtainable to mobilize denominations. I am embarrassed, Roland, to say to you that we're 7 months into the target movement, and only one black denomination has endorsed it. Pastors have talked about it, but denominationally, only the Progressive Baptist Convention have endorsed it. And so I think
don't run past that.
Yes.
Because no, don't run past that. Because explain to folk who the Progressive Baptist Convention is, and how they got started.
Yes.
Real quick, go ahead.
Yes. So I think that it's important to know, to my dear brother who shared earlier, we have a Walt Disney interpretation of history, that there was a time we were all together. The Baptist Convention split because
the National Baptist Convention USA. Go.
Yes, they split because they didn't want to support Dr. King's efforts, and so we're seeing.
Was that Reverend James Jackson? That his name? Oh no, I call names.
Call him.
That was his name, right?
Yeah, I still work here, Roland.
A pastor out of Chicago. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So J.H. Jackson.
J.H. Jackson. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. And so I think that what I heard today really pushed us that before they came to that meeting. Thank you, Dr. Bernice. Before they came to here tonight, 70 years ago, they went down the street and said, we've got to come up with that organism. And so Latasha really helped us last week. And let me pause and thank all of you who supported the We Ain't Buying It for Black Friday weekend. Over 100 organizations came together. 228. Thank you. This is our historical.
Fact check.
Yes, our stenographer, our statistician, and everything else. Thank you so very much. But let me appreciate you that you cannot do it as an individual, but you have to have a team. And the problem is that we've got so many people who have self-deputized themselves to be Kobe Bryant, but don't want the Lakers. And you got to have a whole team in order for you to win, to make it take place. And we're finding that out again, Dr. Bernice, of evolving. What is the strategy? What is the program? And what is the modus operandi? Happens as you are in it. When we began back in February of pulling together the fast, we didn't think we'd be at Christmas still talking about this. We thought it'd be over by Easter. Easter came, Pentecost came, 4th of July came, Juneteenth came, Labor Day came, Halloween came, and we're still having to pivot on our feet. And we have used what has happened here at Montgomery as the blueprint. Jeremiah Wright said, it's all right to be a copycat if you know which cat to copy. And so I came to Montgomery to let you know I'm a plagiarist. Everything we're doing, we stole from y'all. So thank you so very much for giving us the blueprint on how to get it done.
So if I go to Pastor there again, the reason I was joking, but I really wasn't joking. The Progressives split from the National Baptist Convention USA. Gartner, Taylor, Dr. King, and others, because the convention was not being as progressive on the issues of civil rights. That's critically important because even today there are some of our institutions that are not willing to fight for the stuff that need to, and so sometimes we got to be willing to walk away from the folk who ain't about that business. And the reason I call his name out every time, because he deserves to have his name called out, when Dr. King was assassinated, the city of Chicago, when they changed the street to Martin Luther King Drive, that same preacher, his church's address was on that street. He hated Dr. King so much, he moved the church's address to the side street because he did not want his church address to be on MLK Drive. So yes, I'm going to call J.H. Jackson out every time I can for being the help. See, when you own your network and you have no debt, you can do that. Mayor, we're talking about organizations. There are things that you want to get done in the city. Again, individuals can come talk to you, but talk about why working through organizations can change your city.
Yeah, let me start off by saying, because I know you mentioned this, Roland, so I'm just going to shout out my own school on your network. Shout out to Clark Atlanta University, the only university in AUC, but God bless you, Doc. But
hey, listen, give peace a chance.
Morehouse right here.
Yes.
But just to go back to that, I had a conversation with Dr. Cole, who was the consolidating president of Atlanta University and Clark College right before he passed. I was a freshman in college. And he said, and I asked him...
Last month. What? You're 22, I'm messing with you. Come on.
Come on, man.
Take a young joke. Just take it. Run with it.
But I had a conversation with him, and the number one thing he told me, and I asked, how did you consolidate Atlanta University and Clark College to become Clark Atlanta University with the support and backing of all of the black organizations in Atlanta? And he said the number one thing was, one, I had the conversation. And I know my good auntie in the movement over here, she said you have to have the infrastructure, right? But in order for your infrastructure to stay up, you first have to lay that foundation. Montgomery, y'all laid that foundation. Just like you said, be the plagiarism. We plagiarized just a little bit, y'all. Just a little bit. But that foundation is what set forth and set a precedent for so many cities across the country, not even just Georgia, Alabama, and the Bible Beltline. What I would say to that simply is the organizational support is really what supports the backing of every single community. When I'm looking at the city of Stockbridge, more specifically, I'm not looking at just my residents. I'm not just looking at the NAACP. I'm not just looking at the alumni chapter of our sororities and fraternities. I'm looking at how all of our organizations, all of my residents can come together and make sure we're building opportunities for one city. I told them when I beat out the two-time incumbent, I just want to throw that in there, that, I'll say his name, Mayor Anthony Ford. That's my predecessor. I told him.
Call names, yes.
Hey, you said it's your network. I'm going to call the name.
I believe in calling names.
I sat there and I said, as soon as I won, we were going to change the narrative of Stockbridge. We're right now we're at Stockbridge where community connects, but we're now about to be in January, Stockbridge, one smart city. How can we combine our organizations, our community figures? For example, Daddy King, born and raised right there in Stockbridge. How can we combine that history and legacy, but also bring in new opportunities like AI technology and the next generation of advancement to building our organizational power?
Latasha, when you were talking about when y'all didn't want chapters, what immediately jumped in my head was what you were saying is we are focused on black voters, not Black Voters Matter, Inc.
That's right.
Let's walk through that because as I need people to understand, when you are fixated on your insular projects, then you don't understand how do you build capacity with other groups. So let's further unpack that because I think one of the issues, and literally I was just talking with my co-author yesterday, one of the greatest issues that I have with D9, including Alphas, I have with Prince Hall Mason, Eastern Star, Lynx, and all of our entities is that we are so fixated on our insular business that literally if we walk outside of our meetings in our colors, those not in our organizations would not recognize who we are the moment we walked in because we're so focused on insular. So let's unpack why, if we talk about going from a moment to a movement, how we by having organizations, we can't be insular focused. We got to be, as Freddie said earlier, community focused.
So let me say this: it's all by design. And I think we have to be clear about this, that at the end of the part of this whole explosion in the nonprofit industrial complex, that all of us is to create this frame that's one supposed to be to help you raise money so you get a tax write-off, but really at the foundation of that is for government control. We do recognize that, right? And so part of what winds up happening is we have got in this quagmire that to protect the institution, you actually will get disengaged with the actual movement that created the space for the institution to exist. Now, I'm saying that not because I love these institutions and work with these institutions and have funded and support and receive support, but there is a particular kind of strategy. We got to really be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And so I'm going to use one example of what my brother Jamal talked about, and he can speak to it as well. This campaign got to give me this vision around how can we get folks, how can we get people to think about not just their political power, but to really think about their economic power? And I really want to lift up my brother Charles Walker that I see in the back, who has just been just relentless around. He runs the Black Wall Street project that he created in an excellent frame. Let's give that brother a hand. He's been supportive to us and supportive to the Target boycott as well. But I want to say this, that part of, even with the We Ain't Buying It campaign, even though the impetus of it was let's start and let's get black folks to think about how we're being consumers, but what it was necessary is we needed to be able to build our movements and have on-ramps for a movement. Folks will get so caught up, even now I'm getting a critique, there are folks so caught up in trying to hurt or harm a corporation like who it is or the corporate America, that they misunderstand how powerful it is to socialize our people in a way that we're getting engaged and we're getting organized, because this is one of the things we did. It was those of you that may not know, it was a 5-day action. It was a 5-day campaign that from Thursday to Monday, we actually said we ain't buying it. We ain't buying fascism. We ain't paying for that. We ain't buying all these other crazy things. We ain't paying for that. And we're certainly the two movements, and there were 3 companies that were selected. And I'll give a little history around that. Part Target, because we believe that what Target and what our leaders were leading with Target, that we should fall in line and support that. But we also saw it as an opportunity to expand that movement. So while it is black led, we knew that we could actually, how could it, if we're bringing in labor movement, if we're bringing labor organizations, if we're bringing in grassroots groups, and as a result we had over 228 organizations to actually join that. In addition to that, how do we get the word out just to socialize folks? There were over 40 million engagements on social media and all throughout around that space. Folks were creating their own content, because we also have to create movements that make them so irresistible that people want to be down. They want to be a part of it. They see themselves in it. Oftentimes, organizations, it's about me and can you get into me? Are you good enough to be playing with me? Instead of the reverse. He said, one of the things that you said Roland, is around black voters opposed to black votes. I'll even go further than that.
No. I said black voters as opposed to Black Voters Matter, Inc.
There you go. Yeah, black voters, the organization.
You focus on the people, not the entity, the corporation.
And we even go further. If you all ever organized with us or been with us, and Roland has, that I will spend a significant amount of time talking to children. Right, and I remember a reporter asked me, why am I talking to children? They can't vote? Because at the end of the day, what I am organizing is based and centered in our humanity. Voting is a vehicle around for us to use our agency. And so when organizations seek to actually acknowledge and see other people's humanity, and that whatever organization, your organization identity is greater than our identity as a human being, then something is fundamentally off. And so as we're organizing, we have to see these institutions, they have a particular purpose, and they actually organize different elements in our community of people who are aligned around something. I think that is absolutely okay. What I do think that is the moment that we got to think about now. Mm-hmm. Convenience is the killer of change. And so part of what we are not having the courage to do is to actually give up some of our conveniences. And there's no way you're going to make change and you ain't willing to give up something. Right, even if, let's say, in your organization there's a person that's a business owner, you're like, well, we can't really say nothing because Amazon just gave us something for your business owner. That is part of the problem. That if we are thinking that you're going to do one business and 2 businesses or 10 businesses, that literally a company that has trillions, that are making trillions, and we don't have the discipline, right, the economic discipline for one day. So I think what we should be thinking about in this moment is reclaiming our power in a way that we're looking and pushing our institutions from the inside out. Because the truth of the matter is those same institutions can make change if people within those institutions demand that change.
Well, and also, again, earlier when I said why it's important to call names. When Jamal had hit several of us and said that these 4, was it 3 or 4? Target gave 300,000. It was 3 of them. I wasn't going to go there till I wanted it confirmed. And then when they hit the statement out, I gave a speech. I was giving a speech in St. Louis, and I called names, denomination names and preacher names, and immediately put it out there. And there were some folks, and this is to me a big problem that we have, Jamal. Folks were like, bro, did you have to do that? Could you have called them privately? And we always want to, can you call them privately? And my response was, they should have called us privately before taking the money. When people say erroneous things and then I put them on blast, Roland, why didn't you call the brother privately? Well, why didn't he or she call me before they said some erroneous stuff so their facts could have been right? to Latasha's point, we have to recognize that there are going to be moments where we're going to have to call some folk out who are about themselves and not the community. Speak to that.
Yeah, I was in a conversation with some seminarians and shared with them that preachers who preach against other preachers never go viral preaching about Jesus. Their focus is always on attacking and degrading other people in ministry, and they have taken that as their gospel. But I think that there's so much that is taking place that we don't have to play laser tag from the pulpit. The reality is we're still waiting, Roland, for black denominations to say something about the 250,000 Haitians that will be unprotected February 1st. We're still waiting on the denomination to say something that Jamaica needs $8 billion to rebuild, and America has not even made it a line item in the budget, and the UK has only pledged $3 million. Hard for us to say something about the Epstein Island when the black church has never said anything about pedophilia. And so we've got to do some real redress about what it is that we attack in the pulpit and what it is that we give redress. And so, yes, economic parity is important. Dignity is important. But this is the largest generation of black people since we've been in America who don't go to church. And they don't go to church because they feel that the church is disengaged and is disconnected. I'm in Atlanta, and we're doing the work for Target, doing the work for economic parity, doing the work for voter registration. But before the press comes to me, they're going to go to T.I. and Killer Mike first because rappers have become the prophets. And so until preachers take that prophetic mantle and understand what they're supposed to be doing and speaking truth to power, then the younger generation will listen to the radio rather than listen to the gospel. And so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that Bartha was right. We got to have a newspaper in one hand and the Bible in the other. And many churches feel like they got to choose. And I think that you've got to be able to do both.
Right. To that point, Mayor, in fact, I was talking to somebody about this. Actually, I did a video on Instagram the other day. That's literally what Malcolm X said in '63. He said that the white establishment elevates black celebrities and entertainers, quotes, as puppets and clowns, and elevates them to black political leadership. Now, the caveat, it does not mean that black entertainers and athletes and media personalities cannot be involved in movements. Harry Belafonte, Dick Gregory, Ruby Dee, Ossie Davis, Sidney Poitier, Diane Carroll, they were all involved, but they were not leading the movement. Belafonte was older than MLK, and when I interviewed him, he said, no, I chose, after sitting with him in the basement for 5 hours in the church, to follow him. And so, to that point, it is critical that we have to be very mindful of the people who they choose to go to speak to our issues who are not fully informed. For you, how do you deal with that? People who may be saying things in the community who are not fully informed, but they want to elevate themselves as being leaders of the community.
Yeah, that's good.
I know. This ain't my first rodeo, Mayor.
You know. I hadn't even put my hand on the Bible, and that's already a good question. But I can tell you for a fact just how we handle that, and even through the campaign, is that different portion of today's world has really affected the world of politics as well, because people are saying, why are all these elected officials coming to the church? They don't come out to the club, because that's where they are. Let's be real. That's where the people are. The people are at the bars. They're at the clubs because we've now lost in what we call in today's world church hurt.
But do you go to the club?
No, I'm elected now. I don't do that.
No. Hold up. Since no. So hold up. See, hold up. If you don't know your history,
now
we might be at Holt Street, but Dr. King went to pool halls.
Absolutely.
And played pool and said, now that I beat you, you need to come to this mass meeting.
And
Go ahead.
And look, and I'm glad you said that.
They are literal, Bernice laughing, they are literal photos. Matter of fact, Zenona Clayton said, There were times when she said, Doc, we got to go. We got a meeting. And he was like, but I ain't finished with this pool game. But go ahead.
Now, look, Dr. King, don't let Roland fool you. I was out on the campaign trail. I took that same tactic because the picture of Dr. King in the pulpit is in my campaign office.
There you go.
I was out there at the bars. Hey, listen, you see my shirt. I know you listening to Glorilla right now, but hold this real quick. Hold my card. That's how I got it out. But let me tell you, that is the overall arching moment of how to get people today. We've understand, again, since I got cut off by Roland, man, church hurt has really affected my generation. Gen Z, millennials, they always say, and it may not even be church hurt. It'll be church hurt from their mama and them. They just don't want to go back to church, right? And so we now have to figure out how to get the next generation back into the church, one, back into believing that I can do all things through Christ that strengthen me. But two, you don't have to go to church to know everything. You just have to simply open your ears and read the facts. That's what we forget, and that's the part that we don't focus on, is if we actually look up what we're looking at rather than just hearing it from one person, there'll be a difference in our culturalistic look of how we're moving in the community. One of the things that I was really mad about, and I speak on it just because I'm on your network, is the other day at the United Nations, the orange man at the White House brought Nicki Minaj.
The twice impeached, criminally convicted felon con man.
Yeah, name it out.
Everything I said was factual.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
But he brought one of our cultural pop stars to the United Nations, Nicki Minaj. And that wasn't anything but a ploy to get young folk to see what he's doing is good for the community, which it wasn't, because she didn't go up there and say, hey, welcome to our president.
He brought her that shit. He had some tweets about Christians who were being persecuted in Nigeria, and she was speaking on that, and that's what that was about. And she didn't speak to the United Nations. She held a news conference, and it was an 8-minute deal. She spoke for about 5 minutes. That's what it was, but go ahead.
But I say it in the way that I said it because the look at it from our perspective with a young person is that she went to the United Nations. She spoke on behalf of us as Americans, black Americans specifically, to support something that was completely misinterpreted and misunderstood on our standpoint. And that takes me back to my point of talking about information, looking up the information and knowing for yourself and not just hearing it from social media and what we make in our pop stars and celebrities into now political figures.
Well, but when you look it up, know what you're looking up in the credible sources. You just said something about in terms of folk trying to figure out how to get young folks back to church. Jamal, I was speaking to a denominational group in Maryland, and when I walked them through, I said, you're busy trying to get people to come to church, but if you actually do the work, then you don't have to figure that out. And I said to them, if you created a 0.10 radius around your church, and then you sent your members out and went door to door to do an assessment of, first, how many people are in these houses who are under 18 in school. And if you said we're going to offer free tutorials after school in our church, and you get the retired teachers in your church to actually do it, and if you had, say, fine, give me 2 teachers a day, 5 days a week. And I said, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. And there was so many pastors who said, that never, ever even occurred to me. And I said, now imagine if you went door to door and said, we got a free tutorial. How many of those folk would say, that's what that church is doing? I might go there on Sunday. If churches do the work, the folk will show up. Speak to that in terms of how going to New Birth, how you went beyond the church wall to do the work, and that's resulted in pews being filled.
Well, 2 things. I think that when we're looking at church growth, we're using a 1980s model because we're saying come. And here's the reality is culture changes every 4 years, but church culture changes every 20. So the average church is 15 years behind schedule. So most of you who are in this room, you are proud that your church on Sunday is live on Facebook. When 94% of black churches don't have a TikTok account. And the children you're trying to reach don't have Facebook and never have been on Facebook. The very few of you who are in this room will do the majority of your Christmas shopping in the mall. You're going to do it online. But we have an antiquated perspective of church growth that you have to be in the seat in order to be connected. So our church on any given Sunday, 5,000 people are there in person, but it's 50,000 online. So in my first...
Online and multiple viewing,
on multiple
not
platforms.
Just one, yes.
And so if I'm just looking at who is not in the balcony seats and I'm disconnected from what is happening online, then I'm missing it. Thank you so very much. Then I'm missing it. The second thing that the church has got to do is it has to package what it wants to attract. We have a good product. We have bad wrapping paper. Because we're not putting young people up until Youth Day. And so it is not until the fifth Sunday of whatever quarter or the second Sunday in June. And so embarrassingly, my dear brother could become the mayor of a city but couldn't be the deacon at your church. And so we got to do a full reevaluation of how we create ageism within the church. That says that you are not qualified to serve in the church, but you are qualified to run a whole city. And so the church hurt that we're talking about really doesn't exist. It is really trauma. Trauma that is unaddressed because every rapper got Jesus tattooed. They got a scripture somewhere on their chest. But they don't know him personally because we have not made Jesus personal. We've made him the empire. And so evangelicals celebrate Jesus your children don't know. So this is the first generation where we made church an elective and not the core curriculum. So you came to church and allowed your children to stay home and play video games. So they don't know the Lord's Prayer. They don't know John 3:16. Y'all not saying nothing to me. They don't know nothing about the youth choir.
They saying amen online. Don't worry
yes,
about it.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm an 80s baby. When I grew up in the church, your choir had 4-part harmony. So you had altos, sopranos, tenor, bass. Now in the average church, you got to have 3 women sing tenor because there are no men left in the church. And so we've got to be intentional about how do we get our men and how do we reel them in. The one time, Roland, they allowed me to speak for the Nation of Islam. I told them that the Nation of Islam's success is built on the black church's failure. Is that Malcolm X was Malcolm Little, who was the son of a Baptist preacher. He went to jail, and when he went to jail, none of the deacons came to visit him. None of the prayer band went to go see him. Nobody from the Baptist Youth League came to see him, but the Nation of Islam saw his potential. It is amazing that the black church does not believe in rehabilitation. When people come out of jail or come out of rehab or come out of the streets, we don't know how to welcome them. So now the average black church, the only space you have for men is to be in security or to be a deacon. But if
or a parking lot attendant.
Or a parking lot attendant, but to grow them up, then we won't move into that rightful place of power. And that is also why, Roland, the black churches, by and large, did not endorse Kamala Harris to be president. Because you can't endorse a sister to be president when you won't let a sister preach. And so in that same level of disconnect, the whole black church has got to have an autopsy of where is our dysfunction and where is our brokenness, because regrettably, the black church in its ideology and mindset looks like what it did 70 years ago. And so the black church, like many of our historic organizations, are now museums and they are not movements. And so it is very important that we recalibrate where it is that we are for 2025 and 2026 so that we have a focus. I would be negligent and reckless because you always ask, Roland, what is the ask? What are we asking for the midterm elections? How are we going to clone this mayor for people who are going to run in this next election cycle? Because this is the oldest leadership black America has ever seen. I'm 53 years old, and at 53, for y'all to call me a young leader is disrespectful for this generation that's coming through. And so we've got to prepare a whole nother group who will become the mayors, who will become the presidents of the colleges, who will become city council, and to become pastors. And the reason why the line is backed up and why the pipes are clogged is because we do not know succession, we only know assassination. So we got to figure out how to shift the leadership paradigm so another generation can come through and not walk away from the churches who have become just as antiquated as our historic civil rights organizations.
Absolutely. Before I go to Latasha, put a point in that leadership also has to be willing to listen, meaning pastoral leadership. So Jamal leaves Baltimore. He goes to New Birth, and first Sunday he's there, and he's preaching, and I'm watching the broadcast, and I'm like, bro, why your camera's not calibrated? The lower third graphic is jacked up. Now I'm texting him notes, he in the pulpit. Jamal like, I don't know what you talking about, but it's going to be fixed by next week. So we go to the church. This is during COVID. They had the outdoor rallies, and we're sitting there doing a live broadcast, and we're sitting there, and I'm flying a drone, and Jamal's sitting there like, I'm going to need y'all to get a drone next week. And so his film crew came to me. They said, could you please stop doing new stuff? Because every time you do something new, he make us come by and buy it and start doing it as well. But his whole point was, if I do this for real, and I'm saying how it needs to look, don't fight it. Because the people who are watching are also watching.
Let me add something to that. The most critical people for your church are sitting in the balcony. They are not in the first three rows. That they can recurate what your social media looks like, what your streaming looks like, but you've never asked them. You just got one iPad being held up by somebody in the balcony.
With some bad audio.
With some bad audio. But it is not $1 million project that needs to happen. And out of that, I brought Roland on to do a Zoom with pastors around the country.
This is during COVID.
Yes, during COVID, on how to recalibrate it. The reality is, I pastor a mega church, but I am the last generation of mega churches. They will not be necessary for your grandchildren. Whoever are my sons and daughters in ministry, I won't be giving them buildings. I'll be giving them laptops. And so what it is that we look at in terms of 21st century ministry has got to be completely different, and we become so wedded to these pews that we don't even understand to be against the future is to be against Christ. To be stuck in the past is to be wedded to satanic property. And so a lot of us need an exorcism of our mindset to say, how do we push forward? How do we move forward? My grandfather, I'm a third generation preacher. My grandfather was of the age where he said the radio was of the devil. My father was of the age where they said television was of the devil. I was of the generation that the internet was of the devil. Until the pandemic, everybody got saved. So we had to we had to recalibrate everything. And so you're going to have to really be intentional to make sure all of the boards of your church are multi-generational and are reflective of the group that you're trying to attract.
Latasha, I've done a lot of stuff with covering Black Voters Matter, being involved. And here's the other thing. We talked about it before. When I talk about how you got to go outside, how you also help others. There are only 3 black organizations. Only 3 black organizations that have supported my show and network since we launched. I'm talking about every year. Only 3. Black Voters Matter, Repairs of the Breach, and National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. I'm talking about financially. Because what happens is, I'm real frank and honest with our people, okay? That camera, that camera, that camera, that camera, those are C300s. Camera and lens are $20,000 each. And so folks say, we want you to cover this. And I'm like, you know I got to pay him, the driver, the gas, the transportation, and the equipment. It's probably about 175 grand worth of equipment that we brought with us here. It's $1 million still at the studio. And so I tell folk, you got to actually support it. So we can't keep saying, man, we need our own if we don't support. And so that's why I just understand they were there. And so we covered some of these stuff, but I want you to explain to folk how y'all engage with voters differently. When y'all were handing out greens, now explain to people how, when that's where strategy comes in, how when y'all are trying to get folks, one, informed, enlightened, educated, then you try to get them registered, then you try to get them to vote, how y'all create these different ways to reach the voters. So explain how y'all did it with the collard greens.
So we did, let me say this. I think it's really important for us to understand when we organize. I'll just ask you all out here. How many of y'all got a friend that they only call you when they want something? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of y'all got somebody, a neighbor friend, or something that you know that you can always call and depend on them? It may be for something like some bread. It might be, let me hold $100, come pick me up, pound cake, right? There's a difference, right? People know the difference. People know organizations that only come around during election cycle to be extractive. And they treat you like you are the friend that only show up when you want something from me, right? But you ain't never there when I need it. You're never there to depend on, for me to depend on. We were real clear with our organization that we weren't just showing up election cycles. That even we don't even call ourselves a civic engagement group. We're a power building organization because we want black folks to have power, unapologetic, and not just our community. We want people to have power. We're centering the community of which we come from. And so I'll say that to say that part of what we do, it would be difficult for me to even share all the things that we're doing. And I'm not raising that in a framework of bragging or pushing. I'm raising it as a model. One of the most successful programs we have is actually, I'm going to get to the Collard Green Caucus, but I want to talk about the warrant clinics. We did them right here. We've done warrant clinics, and we've eliminated millions of dollars of debt where we have negotiated with the court, negotiated for them to come in community, give amnesty for folks who have failure to appear, warrants out for them. And many folks, we have been able, they have $100 ticket has turned into $4,000. Well, if I have $100, I'm gonna have $4,000. What that has done, that is one vehicle. I don't know if people know that there's a whole report about that is a pipeline to prison, right? Because it goes on and on and on. And I'm saying that because we have to show up in different ways where we're showing up when our people are in need. So what wound up happening in COVID, right after COVID, you know, many folks were laid off. We had all kinds of challenges, particularly in South Georgia. At one point in South Georgia, the highest amount of folks who were hospitalized, percentage-wise, in the country, right, were in South Georgia, in the Albany, in that area. And so part of what we did is there was an election. There was a presidential election. And at the presidential election, there wound up being a runoff for the Senate seats. All right. So we worked hard all of this time, and we got this Senate seats. In this process, what we did is we said what we're going to do is we're going to meet folks at the need, not meet folks to come and tell them what it is we want, right? And there's a woman named Carolyn, Sister Carolyn, who hazed me. Quick story. Who hazed me in Selma, Alabama around this. I was organizing, it was my first organizing. I was organizing public housing, and I was trying to organize this group to come up to the public housing meeting on that Thursday to make some decisions. The community had to make some decisions. They couldn't get anybody to show up. So I went to Miss Carolyn's house. I got to her house, knocked to the door, had my little notepad, and she said, "Come on, baby, come in." So I tell her what I want, and she says, "Baby, do you know what Victor did today?" I said, "Victor?" She said, She's like, "Girl, him and Nick is something else." I said, "What's she talking about?" Young and Restless. If y'all know the Young and Restless, right?
Not her story.
No, Young and Restless. So I go back. Like I go back to Miss Carolyn, because everybody said Miss Carolyn, folks in it, she walked on a heavy-set woman, sister, walked on a walker. I came in the next time, and I came, and she said, "You want something to eat?" I said, "No, ma'am, I'm just whatever." She said, "You know what? I'm kind of tired." And so I said, "Okay, all right." So I leave. I go back. because I'm going to keep going back now. I'm going to organize. I went back. I go back the next time. Once again, she want to tell me, let me tell you what Miss Chancellor did today. And so she goes back every single time. So I don't even know how many times it was. But one time in particular, at this point, I had developed an affection for her. So I'm in the community organizing, but I got to go see Miss Carolyn. So I go in Miss Carolyn. I go in her house. We come in. I'm ready for my tea because she's going to give me some tea and lemonade. And we're going to talk about the Young and Restless. We're going to watch the Young and Restless. So I sit down. I got my thing down. I said, what happened today? What Victor and them do today, Miss Carolyn? And she said, ain't you working for them folks? Where's your notepad? You ain't got your stuff? How them people paying you and you ain't doing your business? I said, well, I mean, where is your notepad? Where's your notepad? So I'm scrambling. I get my notepad. She said, you don't want me to sign it? I said, yes, ma'am. Well, give it here then. And I gave it to her and she signed it. That Thursday, it was packed out. It were people around the wall. This is what she showed me. That the moment that I showed up for Miss Carolyn is the moment that I organized her. And so part of what happens is people know when you are being extractive, when you're just showing up because you just want them to come to your event, or you're just showing up because you want them to sign your piece. I have never forgotten that. And so with the Collard Green Caucus, what we did is because we know that on the New Year's, here we got this election that's going to happen 6 days after New Year's. Y'all know we ain't thinking about no voting right after New Year's, right? And so here we've got this big election. We also have people who really, particularly our farmers, black farmers, were actually struggling. So what did we do? What do black folks need on New Year's? Collard greens. Not just collard greens, what else?
I don't eat.
Black eyed peas, collard greens.
I don't eat now one of them. I have gumbo.
Right.
But go ahead.
But you know the deal. But so what we did is we had what we call the Collard Green Caucus. We bought all the collard greens. The black farmers love us in Georgia. We bought all the collard greens in the whole state of Georgia. Pretty nice collard greens, right? We were able to give out, I think 20,000 people participated in it, but and we do it every year. We actually feed folks every year, right? But we did this Collard Green Caucus. Folks were coming up on bicycles. They might come in a Mercedes. They might come in the car that's taped up the window, because there was something around black folks feeling affirmed. And when they came, we actually were able to give them collard greens, black eyed peas, and cornbread, and we strategically set them up close to where it was early voting. So if you came to you're going to get the food anyway, right? Because we're feeding our communities. But you could certainly go and early vote right next door. People loved it. We kept running out. Folks loved it because, one, in this process, as we're organizing, black folk want to feel affirmed. The second thing is we are so grateful that the vendors, we're very intentional about working with black vendors and paying black vendors so that it's a circulation of the money. And then the third thing is sometimes we're so caught up in what it is that we want people to do that you've made this be a project and not about people. People can feel it. They know when you're just showing up to use them or to be extractive. When you show up in a way, when your spirit is in alignment, because at the end of the day, we got to, even when we're talking about the church pieces and we're talking about our institutions, when our institutions just show up because they've modeled themselves out of white institutions that say that you got to have some criteria, right, to make yourself be worthy to be me, what message we sending to black folks? What message are we sending in our community? So in that, what we did with the Collard Green Caucus and what we do with all our programs, we got a whole sick and tired campaign. We got a whole campaign really dealing with environmental justice called The Block is Hot. That part of before we started anything, this is the note I'll say. Before Cliff and I started anything, and we had no money. No money. Matter of fact, when we started the organization, I quit my job and went and bought a car that Friday because I didn't know when I was going to have another, I didn't know what my credit was going to be. And I didn't know when I was going to have another check stub. So we didn't have no money. But what I will say is we, and Cliff rented these cheap cars. I keep talking about every time the wind blow the car. I was like, he was like, you know we ain't got no money. I was like, okay. So we went around to 7 states and went to rural communities throughout the Black Belt and just sat and listened to folks. You would be amazed. Everybody want to talk at us. Who want to listen? When do we have the humility to listen? The people know what they need if you create the infrastructure, right, to listen to what they need and base your campaign to respond to that. That, for us, that is what's worked well for us.
Well, that actually is a direct teaching of Ella Baker, who told the SNCC students, those folks, they ain't got second, third grade education, but they smart. listen to what they want, and they'll tell you what they want. We're going to do final comments, and obviously we're here celebrating the 70th anniversary. But what do you want folk to do tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, after today?
Yeah, and I'm going to start off with just a small story. My great-grandfather would always tell my grandmother, who's in the audience, when she was going to Georgia State University.
Where's Grandma? Where's Grandma?
You can't do that. Okay. You might listen. I know you young. You can't say my grandmother in the audience. No. You got to say. What's your grandmother's name?
Let me get a full accolades. My grandmother, Vivian Thomas, is here, and she served as the first black commissioner in District 4 in Henry County. So my grandmother is here.
Awesome.
There you go. Hold up. Did y'all get a shot at grandmama? Boy, you going to get cussed out if you ain't talking about your you ain't getting no name. You ain't getting no history. Go ahead and stand up. Doris said stand up. That's right. There you go.
Beautiful.
Y'all going to be in the car leaving here. You like, you ain't say my name. You just said grandmama. Man, you better do that thing right. You married?
You see, let me tell you.
You married?
No, but he not letting me get to my story.
Let me explain something to you. When you get married, you better do the exact same thing. Don't just say,
look,
hey, that's the person I'm with. Go ahead, finish your story.
Let me get to my story. I'm a storyteller. I got to build
You got a
up to
storyteller, but your grandmother going to cuss you out later just saying, my grandmama sitting here. I mean, you better say a name.
My great-grandfather would always tell her never to stop in Henry County because of the racial tension that was in that community, going to Georgia State. She ended up becoming the first black female commissioner in District 4. Now, his great-grandson, he's no longer with us, is the youngest mayor in that area. I would tell everybody, every single person, every day. Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give a seat to you at the table, bring your own. I'm telling you, if they don't give you a seat at the table, you take their chair. That's how we moving forward.
Well, I like that. Okay. I like that one.
We got to bring it up with the times just a little bit. I'm telling you, you take their chair, because what we're realizing is just like Rosa Parks and so many others, she said, I'm not moving. And when we get that same mentality to be steadfast and immovable and say, I'm not moving, that's when real power comes. That's when black political power, and that's when black power, period, comes into play, because we're not just saying, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, let me get my purse. I'm saying, no, I'm not moving. And if you got something to say, you want to talk to somebody higher, go ahead, bow your head and close your eyes, because that's the only person that's going to let me move from this seat. So every day moving forward, stand up for what you want. Stand up for what you believe in. Sit down and be firm and let them know, I'm not giving up my seat. Matter of fact, I'm going to take yours.
And, I mean, we are in Montgomery, and y'all do some things with some chairs. I don't forget nothing. Just in case y'all want, y'all can go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, and there's a T-shirt with a chair on it. I'm just saying.
I'm an 80s baby, and when I was coming up, the first lady was Nancy Reagan, and she had a campaign that said, just say no to drugs. And when she did that campaign, drug usage for teenagers went up by 82%. The principle, Latasha, is you can't tell people what not to do without telling them what to do. And so while we are vehemently against Target and against Home Depot and against Amazon, I think it is prudent for us to underscore we are for black business. And so it's so important that we support black entrepreneurs and really enlarge our ecosystem of supporting each other. This weekend, while we were not buying it, we were buying, we ain't buying it. We were buying from black businesses all over the country. We have the 5 churches did black bazaars this weekend that housed and held 100 businesses at their churches. We had it at our church in Atlanta, and 4,000 people came up. And almost every vendor sold out of their product. So it's so important that we push our own entrepreneurs. And because we're broadcasting live on Roland Martin, if we got any entrepreneurs in the room, can you just stand right where you are? This is your 10-second plug for your business and for your industry.
There you go.
For your enterprise. Come on, give them a big cheer. So I would challenge everybody, make sure you support a black business over this holiday season.
Latasha, final comment.
So in that same spirit, black folks control $1.7 trillion annually in consumerism. Just consumer dollars, right? Here it is, we have the opportunity to use not only leverage our political, but to leverage our economic power. But I do want to say this, I think it's going to have to be a shift in paradigm. How many of you all have really thought about what America would look like? I always do this exercise, but I don't have enough time. What would this nation look like without racism? How many of you all really ever thought about that? Right? And I usually ask that question no matter where I go. The majority, 99% of the folk, 99.9% of folks have never asked themselves that question. And if we're not envisioning a world without racism, we will never create that. That means that we've resigned ourselves as if in some ways racism is legitimate. And so in order for it to shift, we're going to have to shift the way we see things. We're going to have to shift from seeing ourselves as citizens of this nation and start thinking and seeing ourselves as founders of the America that we desire, we want. And that means that you got to move like a nation builder. That means that you got to use your $1.7 trillion not to support the folks that are actually trying to take food from your table, but we've got to redirect our resources. Those brothers and sisters that just stood in, yes, it is more convenient to go Amazon. Amazon is at my house. The truck has been at my house twice a week, every week, right? Up until we started this campaign, I had to become more conscious around how we use that. You have to understand that convenience is the killer to change. So if you fundamentally want black folks to be doing better, you got to demonstrate it. Don't talk about what somebody else needs to do. Where are your dollars? Are you tracking your dollars? Are you tracking how you're using your resources? Many of us will say, oh, well, we don't support black business. Black business wouldn't be in business if black folks didn't support it. So find a way, even our business folks, find a way that you are offering the best to your people, right? And we will show up and support you.
Yep.
But I need you all to really, I think in this moment, our next, what we can learn from the Montgomery Bus Boycott is each generation, the rain goes higher and higher. What are we being called for in this moment? And so with what we're seeing right now, we have a calling in this moment to do not just as they did in the Montgomery Bus Boycott, but we're supposed to be taking this thing to the next level.
My final comment is this. It absolutely drives me crazy every MLK Day in Black History Month when America, but especially when black people, will play Dr. King's last sermon. Because what we often do is we actually play the last 2 minutes. And so all of us heard the mountaintop, and then we holler, shout, all this sort of stuff. But I got to remind folks, that was a 43-minute and 16-second sermon. And if you actually listen and read the full sermon, one, he says it specifically, put money in black banks, black insurance companies, and he name checks companies to boycott. He says, Jesse, what did you call it? Redistribute the pain. Target is learning, redistributing the pain. Then he also said in that sermon, what you just said about black spending power. He said individually we're poor, collectively we're wealthy. You said 1.7. If you took the 1.7 billion of black people in the country, we would match the economy of Mexico, Australia, South Korea, and larger than Spain. That's literally, if you understand GDP. But this is what he then says. We're individually poor but collectively wealthy. And he then says, if black people move as a collective, then we will be able to see change. Montgomery only happened because 52,000 moved as a collective. If there were 25,000 sellouts who got on the bus, it would not have worked. So it's the collective. So leaving here, you have to, if you listen to the thread line between both panels, is one, you cannot change jack in our community if you're not tied to an organization. Two, you have to have ego-less leadership. Three, you have to be willing to work with other entities to achieve it. Four, you have to have infrastructure. Fifth, we have to fund it. But lastly, you have to be impatient enough to demand change, but patient enough to see it through. There is no reason we should come here for the 75th or the 100th and we're still talking about what they did in 55 and not talk about what happened in 25. That's your challenge leaving here. We have an award to present. Hold tight 1 second. Doc, go on right ahead. You know black people, we call Doc, we call you, all kind of titles. Let's go ahead and present this award.
Jamal Bryant. On behalf of the Southern Youth Leadership Development.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Hold the microphone closer.
Thank you so
much. There you go.
On behalf of the Southern Youth Leadership Development Institute, we want to present to you the Rosa Parks Change Agent Award.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wow.
Is it in front of Rosa Parks' image is in front of them. And you know, you're supposed to come tomorrow night. Yes, we'll give you an excuse.
Thank you.
For whatever reason.
Yes.
But because of all you do,
yes,
we want to present to you this award with pride.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
So this design is in front of the Children's Museum, the Rosa Parks Children's Museum, and so it's right outside. So when you go by it, make sure you see this design, and now the award is designed like that. But
yes. Thank you, Dr. Crenshaw. I'm so overwhelmingly honored and I'm humbled, and thank you for signing my permission slip to miss tomorrow night. Tomorrow is the 50. Thank you. Tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, Illinois. And so Mama has allowed me to catch the midnight train back out of here. But I am so grateful to carry the torch and to keep the legacy alive. And I'm excited to do so in the presence of the youngest mayor for the state of Georgia, knowing that the next generation is coming behind and we hear their footsteps. And so on behalf of the nameless and faceless people who never get a plaque, a certificate, a trophy, but they do the heavy lifting every day, I am so grateful, I'm so honored, and I'm so appreciative. Thank you so very much.
All right. While they're taking pictures, we have two appeals because part of this also we talk about what has to be funded. And so Ms. Crenshaw's organization is the Southern Youth Leadership Development Institute. The Southern Youth Leadership Development Institute. We also want support for Holt Street Church Museum. Yes. Now, here's the deal. We made it easy. Now, Deborah, if these folk are trying to give cash, where do they do that? Y'all got somebody collecting something in the back? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Now, they also have embraced technology, so they got QR codes as well. So this sheet is also on the back table in the foyer. I know we are streaming, so I'm going to put this right in front of the camera. So, y'all, you can point your phone. If you're watching, you can point your phone to the screen, and this is the QR code to support Ms. Crenshaw's organization plus the museum. And so, please, let's fund our institutions. For the folk who come to, this is the first time I've actually been to this church, and so I look forward to walking through and looking at all the history and reading the stories. But also, let's support her youth organization because that's the only way we train next generation of leaders. So there's a QR code. All you got to do Some of y'all, raise your hand if you do not know how to give via QR code. I know some of y'all don't. So you open your camera phone, point your camera to the QR code, and you will tap the link. I got this right here, but not only this for the camera. This for the camera. I got you. I got you. This for the people watching online who not here. Okay. So you point your camera to the QR code, tap the link. It will take you right to the site for you to give right there. So let's do that right here. They're organizing the photo. Black people need some music, so I can get some photo music. You can play or do something, but we need some music.
Like a ship that's tossed and driven, battered by an angry sea. When the storms of life are raging and their fury falls on me, I wonder what I have done that makes this race so hard to run. Then I say to my soul, take courage, oh, the Lord will make a way somehow.
All right, all of the panelists, I've been told they want y'all to take a photo on the steps.
Yes, just 1 minute. Where's we always
hold tight.
Thank you. We always want to lead. Big sis, come stand with me real quick, please. We always want to lead by example. And so are we still live, Roland?
Yeah, we still live.
Thank you. We always want to lead by example, and so we're grateful for this legacy that is taking place. On behalf of the King Center and New Birth, we want to give Mama Crenshaw, we want to give you a seed of $2,000 to start the offering. On behalf of the King Center and New Birth, we want to give Pastor an additional $2,000 to the Hope Museum so that the legacy can move forward. We want to challenge all of our civil rights organizations to not just match us, but to exceed what it is that we're doing on today. All of us are the beneficiaries of what has taken place in this historic place. Here is the reality that there is no reason for them to ever do a fundraiser for the Holocaust Museum. The Holocaust Museum, ladies and gentlemen, is able to perpetuate itself because they understand that they'll never forget. Our problem is we act like we don't remember. And so on this holiday season, let's challenge ourselves that we do not just buy things, that we invest in memories, we invest in historic significance. The reality is all of us should have our shoes off because this is ground. This is a critical place in history, and so I'm honored to stand with the King Center and with New Birth. Thank you. Latasha, standing beside me, is also going to match what we're doing and is giving a seed of $2,500.
Southern Black Girls don't get $2,000.
Southern Black Girls is now giving $2,000. Y'all not clapping good. Come on. This is a Baptist church. Y'all acting Presbyterian. Come on now.
Episcopalian.
And so we want to challenge those of you who are online, if you will please stand with us, stand with this historic and significant moment in history. The reality is we should be moving forward, so this is a distant memory. How embarrassed should we all be that 70 years later we still have to boycott Target?
after what was happened 70 years ago. This should be unnecessary. But let's invest and let's make a contribution so your grandchildren won't have to come 70 years later to perpetuate the fight and the mission. They'll only have to remember it. I'm excited about it. If you're going to give today, would you give a big cheer right now? Come on, give a big cheer. Y'all can do better than that. Give a big cheer.
So all the panelists up here, was everybody? They're still here. All right, so we're gonna let's get a couple over here. Shift this direction. Yes. We're a little loaded on that side. Y'all know this one of them old time Jet magazine photos, like 30 folk in the photo. That's right, shoulder to shoulder. All right, so we got the photographer in the center right here. Gotcha. All right, so here's the deal. If y'all want to give cash, we're gonna pass this plate. So pass it down that. Y'all know how to work a plate. Down that way, next aisle, up and back around. Okay, here we go. Photographer's in the center. Eyes right here. Somebody shoot with an iPhone so you can airdrop it. I got it. All right, everybody look left. Look left. Over there, y'all snap. Okay, everybody look right. Look right. Last time, look in the center. If you ain't got it, that is not our problem. All right, we got a video. He's shooting the video right here. On 3, you're going to say Holt Street Baptist Church Museum. 1, 2, 3. Holt Street Baptist Church Museum. That's the wave. All right, we're going to close this out with a prayer. Who's going to do this thing? Pastor, go ahead. Handle your business. Which people? Everybody. Okay, y'all. Okay. Just like they did back in the day. Oh, you want a photo of people standing in front outside? In front of the church. Okay, so you want everybody here just to walk out the door? Walk out them doors. Take a photo. Yes. Okay, got it. All right. After he say the prayer, the benediction.
Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the privilege of gathering in your house. We thank you for those who have shared their thoughts about the history of this church and the history of this movement. We pray that you will continue to bless us, strengthen and guide us. Let us continue to work toward the freedom of all men. And let everybody know that we all feel we are created equal. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
All right, so we're going to walk out this door, but on behalf of Southern Youth Leadership Development Incorporated Institute, we want to thank you for coming out. All the panelists, give them a round of applause. They were wonderful. And Roland Martin, unfiltered. Yes. All right, we're going right out there to take the photos.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Give me 1 second. I want to give you this. Yeah.
excuse me, everybody. What we want to do for the photo, they want to put the panel up here in the pulpit, and then we get all the people in the choir stand. That way we won't have to go outside with that weather. Once again, all the people that were out in the congregation, can you come to the choir stand? Come to the choir stand, please. You can access the choir stand on each side, go up the steps.
So the rest of the congregants can go to the choir stand and on the pulpit.
Hello, if you're a part of the congregation, can I have you back here in the choir section? And if there's not enough room, we have this section back here as well, okay? You guys can make your way up to the front.